Whatever Sam has done, it's working.
3 100-yard games for Landers. Here goes Rocket. Sanders in a dead sprint. And to the end zone. He is in again. A 68-yard run.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
With 4 receivers, 3 at the bottom of the screen. Here comes a blitz off the edge. Howard has room, throws to the end zone for Sinnott, and touchdown.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
And on Gabriel throwing deep, got a man. Just enough to catch a Stoops inside the 5 at the 2-yard line.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
1st and 10 at the 20. Pratt looking, end zone, touchdown, Tulane. Shea Watt, a 20-yard touchdown reception.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
And Phil Maffa to the left side. Big fella, open field 20. He'll ride the block to the 5 and reach for the end zone.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
And here we go, Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina. I'm David Smoak, Garrett Ross, Jacob Wilson, and also Jack McKenzie in studio. We'll get to some college football news and notes. Oklahoma State, some staff changes. Also news on Josh Heupel. Plus, we'll also get into as well Alabama looking for their 6th offensive coordinator in 8 years. Plus, great news for Tulane, it appears, when it comes to head coach Willie Fritz. But let's start last night at the Farrell Center. There's games tonight in the Big 12. Oklahoma plays at TCU, who just blitzkrieg Kansas Saturday. Kansas State, Iowa State, and a great one in Ames. And Oklahoma State plays at Texas at Austin, where Baylor will be, I think, on Monday. But last night, Baylor jumped on KU. That's what they've done during their 5-game winning streak and found a way to extend the lead. It got tight with 15 minutes left, and then they got a run. And Baylor's now won 5 straight. Kansas has lost 3 consecutive games.
They gave up the lead for less than a minute, and then at least tied it or got it back. I can't remember if they went up by 1 or if they tied it. But after that, they never looked back, and that had been the problem where they had leads, substantial ones, got whittled away, gave them up, and didn't ever get it back. This was a completely different game. Kansas right now, for them, they're in. I think that Bill Self is a little bit surprised at some of his freshmen were not as ready as they appear, like MJ Rice and the like. But the bigger thing, they don't have depth. But Baylor used their depth last night early. They did get a little conservative late, but everything worked. LJ Cryer on the first half was totally on a heat check.
Yep.
Brilliant, on fire, whatever you want to say about it. Jalen Bridges played a great all-around game, especially rebounding the ball, defensively, getting after players. Caleb Lohner, I thought, had his best minutes of the season. And then,
they've been, downright sensational at times, and good atmosphere. Obviously a great opponent, so people are excited for it. And I think that, the whole program delivered, as best they could with that showing. And, Keontae George wasn't necessarily, the superstar, level of player last night that, he can be or has flashed at times, but that was okay because he didn't have to be because others contributed in such a grand way. And Paul, ran down a bunch of them. But, the guard play was excellent. And also Jalen Bridges, really just continues to come into his own. And, when he first got here, there's plenty of West Virginia fans that were, talking down on him and this and that. And, it's all understandable when, you get your feelings hurt and somebody leaves the program. It's, everybody has it happen at some point in time or another. But there were definitely some sour grapes in the way that they sort of started. It was like, see, we told you he's not that, great or whatever. And I don't know. I don't think that they've got much to say these last couple of weeks, especially this last week, because he's been downright
ever
excellent.
Since the road game at West Virginia that kind of got him going.
I mean, it's like he got that out of his system, and ever since then he's like, oh, no, I'm really good. I can really be a great player here. And, you combine that with what they're getting from the likes of Cryer and Flagler and then, George at other times. And, it was a very impressive win, a great win. A needed win, I think, because even with 4 wins in a row, if you go and you lose to Kansas at home in that atmosphere, it's disappointing. There's no way else to describe that. If you fall last night, even if it was by a point at the very end, it would have been disappointing. And so to fend off any rallies, to control a large portion of that game, and to ultimately close it out, I thought was, it was a great night for Scott Drew and Baylor basketball.
They've won 5 straight all-conference games. 3 of those games have been on the road, home games against Oklahoma State and also last night to Kansas. They have Arkansas this Saturday in that SEC against Big 12 Challenge. And then Monday, Baylor's in Austin, I believe, against Texas on the road. Texas tonight again playing against Oklahoma State. From where I saw the game, which is behind what is the second half, the home basket, standing there, and it was behind me was Kevin Gall, and he's a part of Baylor Athletics. Caleb Lohner seems to now understand his role. Jalen Bridges seems to be comfortable, as both of you mentioned. It also seems to me that Langston Love is getting better because he's also getting more experience, and he's getting even more, if you want to say, game time reps, because remember, he's been playing from behind. Flo Thamba was good. I mean, there's a couple of hustle plays. I thought that there were a lot of hustle plays that were made by many, including Love, Lohner, obviously from Thamba. No, it was Flagler. Was trailing one time and had a steal on with KU, 5-3 in conference play. Now, another note. Alabama is looking for yet another offensive coordinator. The news today that Bill O'Brien is headed to join Bill Belichick in the NFL, which is really, to me, kind of where O'Brien always seems to be, although he's had the stint at Penn State and obviously Alabama as an assistant with Saban. Look at this note. Saban's last 5 offensive coordinators at Alabama are either head coaches right now or coordinators in the NFL or in head coaches in college. O'Brien to the Patriots, Sarkisian at Texas, Loxley at Maryland, Daboll with the Giants, who did a hell of a job this year, and Kiffin, the head coach at Ole Miss.
Yeah, he's got a heck of a track record. Bill O'Brien, went to the Coach Saban rehabilitation program and is back where he was before he went to Penn State, back as the Patriots offensive coordinator. That seemed to be a match that worked because Bill Belichick is going to be really specific about, who he hires. Actually, part of his problem might be, and Bill O'Brien doesn't solve this really at all, is that he seems to, only eat fruit from his own farm. He like we accused Dabo Sweeney of doing until he went out and got Garrett Riley. Much like the move where he got Brent Venables, he needed to do another one of those. Maybe Bill Belichick needs to do that, but he's going to be a tough guy to work for if you haven't grown up in that system. But the two guys who were calling the offense in New England this year were Matt Patricia and Joe Judge. And clearly, if you watch the Patriots at all, Mac Jones did not care for the way that they did it, and that is putting it as mildly as you can. And so, very accomplished offensive coordinator. I think Alabama fans are actually happy to see him go, just like a lot of them were apparently happy to see Pete Golding go. And so Saban now has to fill two big jobs on his staff. He also lost some other assistants, but the big ones are offensive and defensive coordinator, and those are both open for the Tide right now.
Craig, you hear the names, even a little smoke last week about Jeff Lebby, who's just, of course, entering his first offseason, I guess second with Oklahoma. Kingsbury's in Taiwan chilling, although that would be a rehabilitation tour for him. What are your thoughts? Anyone else that jumps into your head about that?
No, I mean, I'm sure there's some, Alabama guy through and through that there's some connection of some sort that I'm not thinking of off the top of my head. I haven't spent a lot of time, looking into that. Just noticed that they made the move a little while ago, or that Bill O'Brien's making the move a little while ago. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, outside of the two names that you mentioned, I'm open ears to the chat and to whoever else has, input on who, might fit that bill. But, I mean, going by the qualifications and just kind of what we've seen and maybe the style of football that's being played, I mean, those two would certainly check a lot of boxes for you. I don't, know in terms – I guess Kingsbury probably more so than Lebby could keep that little stat that – going as far as, going and being an OC in the NFL or being a head coach at the college level. I don't know, but I mean, maybe Lebby gets a head coaching job relatively soon. I don't know though. I wouldn't bet on that as much as I would bet on Kingsbury, getting back to the NFL or getting a head coaching job in college. But I mean, who knows? Those are intriguing names. I think Kingsbury would be, excellent back in an OC role. I don't know how, after being a head coach at the NFL level, even though he's a young guy, like, do you come back and you're just ready to be under the thumb of Saban? But then again, he's not going to have a head coaching opportunity. So it's, it's going to be an adjustment that he's going to have to get used to no matter where he goes. So maybe with it being Saban, that's easier just because that's like the grand poobah type of dude. You don't, everybody's worked for Saban at one point or another.
Or you wish you did.
Or you wish you did.
Or wish you didn't.
So maybe that's not really a big deal at all, and Kingsbury would be fine. But, I mean, we don't know. Like, he might want to just chill out in Asia for, like, a year. I mean, he could very well want to do that. And so, that's entirely up to Kingsbury and whether or not he even wants to coach immediately. Lebby would make sense. I mean, OU's his alma mater. That's the only thing I could really see, like, connecting him to OU for a little while longer. And just the fact that Venables brought him in to make this whole grand, new era of OU football. And so I would think he's probably got some personal pride invested in that. But then again, if Nick Saban comes calling with the top OC job, arguably in college football, then maybe your alma mater doesn't matter as much. I don't know. But, yeah, those two are the big names, I guess you could say, that make the most sense right now. But it'll be fascinating because it's going to be somebody of note. Assuredly, and that's a big time job.
I'm being corrected. It's not Taiwan, it's Thailand, where he is, and guys who have served in our country
today.
Yeah,
I mean, who knows?
But so just thank you, a lot of you who have been over there. I think serving our country, we appreciate. Or on business. Thanks for giving me the heads up.
But, Smoky, you and I know a guy from the gym, Joe, who has done some stuff with Saban's camps and things like that.
Yes.
And Joe, it was funny to me because the first time I asked Joe about, like, how many coaches, like, every coach that wants to come to it, like, will go to a Saban coaching clinic. And it's not just because they're trying to, like, catch holy water at the feet of the Pope or something like that. People genuinely do, for the most part, want to work there. I mean, it's not like they're doing it because they're like, this is the only place I can go. They want to work for Saban. Saban is really good at developing coaches. What they do when they leave is a whole different thing. But, Jimbo Fisher's won national titles. Kirby Smart's now won 2. There are those guys out there that don't hit. But if you look, that one of those OCs is Mike Locksley right now, right?
Yep.
Okay, what is he doing at Maryland? He's helping Maryland win for the first time since Ralph Friesian was there. So, there is something to it, and whatever Jimbo Fisher or anybody says after they leave, it is kind of very few and far between. Most coaches like working there.
Well, remember back in the early days of Saban at Michigan State when he first kicked off his head coaching opportunities, you heard maybe it was also miserable working for him. You know why? Because he's demanding, because he's not going to allow anything to slip through the cracks, and he learned along the way. And I would think he's probably still as demanding as ever, but also not mellowed, but also understood a little bit about how to handle the staff. But, yeah, if you have a chance to go work for Nick Saban, you do that. Now, Oklahoma State, we knew that there would be a new defensive coordinator. There is co-defensive coordinators. What they're doing, Joe Bob Clements has been promoted the co-defensive coordinator from the staff of Mike Gundy, but Brian Nardo, who spent last year at Division II Gannon University, is also now co-defensive coordinator. Tim Duffy, the defensive backs coach, becomes the defensive passing game coordinator. And now a couple of notes about Nardo. He's coached at Youngstown State, Emporia State. He's coached as a GA at Ohio U. Gundy's done this before. Do you guys remember a name that became pretty popular in college football as the defensive coordinator he hired like 10 years ago from a Division II school? I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I didn't know where he had come from. Mike Yursich from Shippensburg. He was a Division II guy back in 2013. Turned out to be okay.
That was the OC at Penn State, right? That's where he is, Craig? Yursich?
Yeah.
Yeah. So... yeah, and he's been a couple different places. So, yeah, I've seen a lot of people going, wow, kind of a big move. But sometimes if you can coach, you can coach. I think some of the college football world waits too long on the North Dakota State guys. I think people have waited too long on some of the Sam Houston State coaches. I think people wait too long because, what can they do? But look what Kalen DeBoer did at Fresno State and Washington after a couple years after coming up from Division II. Sometimes you just need the opportunity. If you're running an efficient program, without the resources, what can you do with resources is often something I think people should look at.
Shippensburg was where Yursich was. He went to Oklahoma State and spent like 5 or 6 years. From the time he was at that level, he's been to Oklahoma State, Ohio State, Texas, and now Penn State. So it's like those are three blue bloods, along with Oklahoma State, of course, which is a team that's right there in the middle of it when it comes to the Big 12. So he's done this before, and so Nardo now is the co-defensive coordinator with Oklahoma State.
Yeah, it's hard to go wrong with guys who have been at Youngstown State. That's got a pretty good coaching tree. And, as far as the lower levels and all that go, I mean, that prevents me from really trying to make too much of a judgment on this hire on the surface. Like, I know that the thing to do is like, oh, that's an A grade hire, or that's a D. I don't know enough about the guy. Like, I'll just give it up to Mike Gundy. He's made some great hires in the past. Some of them haven't worked out as well. But I don't really, balk too much at where the guy came from. I mean, the Big 12's had no problem hiring Texas high school football coaches to be like, major assistants and now a head coach in Lubbock and probably more to come. But I mean, I'm not really too worried. If you can coach ball, you can coach ball. Sure, there's going to be some adjustments. Sure, I think it's fair to ask the recruiting question of, how are they in that space? But as far as X's and O's and knowing football, I'm sure the guy is pretty good. And I think probably the fact that we don't know about him is a testament to probably that he's pretty good, because I don't think it's always just the popular name that everybody knows is the right hire to make. So, again, a fascinating offseason for Oklahoma State where, there's a lot of moving pieces, a lot of personnel, a lot of coaching that's, gone in and out that door. And, the dust is still kind of unsettled at this point. But it will be fascinating to see. Again, I say this every time we bring them up. Like, he's either on the verge of just remaking this thing and, everybody begging for forgiveness for all the salty things they said this past year, or he's lost his mind and he's at the end of his rope in Stillwater. I mean, I really think that, that's where we are. But, that's an interesting hire. Certainly not one that many would have pegged, and we'll see how he does.
Mick Muffin jumped in. Sikkim, a lot of you jumping on. Kailani says the big difference between Taiwan and Thailand, Scotty B, my guess is Levy. King Williams the third, 3D. Kellen Moore could take the role if he gets bored in Dallas, depending on his role, which is stay there or whatever's next for him.
Was there a difference between Thailand and Taiwan?
Oh, you just said big difference?
There is a big difference. Yeah.
From Lee Buttercup, what is KK doing in Taiwan? Thailand.
Chilling out.
Again. Byron Leftwich. Interesting name someone's thrown in there. Maybe he stays
Alabama.
in the NFL game. Yeah.
You know what? Okay, so my top 5 is on that. And who threw out Byron Leftwich? And I don't think he really needs to go in. I think Byron Leftwich getting fired in Tampa is just what the owners have made Todd Bowles do to say that he's doing something. What Todd Bowles and Byron Leftwich and Tom Brady and Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and Leonard Fournette all did not have control over was the ankles, shoulders, and ACLs of their offensive line.
Yeah.
So when all that went down and they all got hurt, then how are they supposed to,
who's the veteran center that came back?
Ryan Jensen.
It would have been nice if he could have had a game or two to just play it, just like anyone else. From Provo Cougar fan, go ahead.
I do think it's interesting. Just the timing kind of sucks, and that's the thing is you thought the coaching carousel was over, but now these NFL jobs are going to be shaking the trees again. So a lot of these OCs who took jobs prior, I wonder how many of them would have been under consideration for Alabama otherwise. If they hadn't already made moves to their new destination. So, a little bit late, but it's Alabama, so even a new guy who's barely even moved in his desk, items at this point probably could still say, Nick Saban just called. Sorry, guys. That very well could happen.
You take the call.
It'll be very intriguing. I mean, they got to replace both coordinators, so that's an undertaking no matter who you are, and especially when you've rifled through so many over the years at this point. So, I'll be fascinated to see how that shakes out.
Jacob Unruh, by the way, who covers Oklahoma State. He's in Austin for tonight's basketball game from the Oklahomans, going to join us about Oklahoma State and some of these staff notations that we've given you earlier in the show today.
Yeah. Also, with what's going on hiring-wise, when you suggest NFL and college coaches, there's much more movement between the two now than there really has ever been because more NFL teams are going with offenses that were only run in college for a long time.
Well, there was this almost stubbornness and arrogance, we're not going to do that, although some coaches came up from the college ranks. Some of them had to. Provo Cougar fan. I once flew into Thailand, Naval Air Station on the coast about 100 kilometers southwest of Bangkok. Spent a wild weekend in Bangkok. I can absolutely just imagine.
I think that's the only ways that I've heard of anybody traveling to Bangkok was it was a wild week. I don't think I've ever heard. It's I just went and chilled out. That's usually a pretty wild story if you've headed to that part of the the world. Yeah. It's not just ho hum, chilling on the beach. Typically, it's very much the hangover appears in your head as far as that goes.
Nobody goes to the Bangkok Build-A-Bear workshop.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
By the way, Texas has their wide receivers coach, Chris Jackson, part of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now that their season is over, that's been one that's been out there for quite some time. Jacksonville's season ended with the loss this past weekend. Looks like he will become the wide receivers coach. He's been on the Doug Peterson staff, and that's not bad to get at all. From time and just talk about soaking in some knowledge being a part of the Chris Peterson staff. Oklahoma State is solid at ball. I think they just happen to be in the best conference in basketball right now from Jacob. DS50. They're playing Texas tonight. They did get the win, though. Hell of a win against Iowa State on Saturday. Cyclone Larry, we've brought him up before, who's a mad fan. He's funny as hell. I don't even know his real name, but he's got a great Twitter feed. Last week after they won their game, remember the showdown coming up, which is tonight with Kansas State, because Kansas State won their game. He was like, we're going to have two teams. And I said, hey, don't take any game as a gimme. He said, I'm not worried. I'm worried about Oklahoma State, kind of in a sarcastic way. Well, they didn't beat Oklahoma State, but that's still one hell of a game tonight. Kansas State playing Iowa State in Ames. Josh Heupel has a new contract. First 11-win season since 2001 at Tennessee. It's been that long, and that was 3 years after their national title with T. Martin and company. He received the new deal that will pay him $9 million a year, extend him through the 2028 season. Now, I'm happy as I could possibly be for anyone that gets any kind of a contract based on what they've done. But are we seeing yet again, and Josh Heupel seems to be real, that this seems to be legitimate, building what he's doing. But why now? Is anyone after him? Do we know?
No.
Are they bidding against themselves again?
Well, they did it because he's won 11 games for the first time since 2001. So,
Well,
I mean, you saw why they did it. It's in the tweet, but I know what you're saying. It's just so effing stupid that we do this over and over again. Yeah, because, nobody's getting him. He's at Tennessee. He's not leaving Tennessee. Oklahoma's not an open job, his alma mater. Where would he go? Where's he? I mean, unless you feel like there's like NFL interest or something like that, which I haven't heard a peep on that. Not that I'm, Mr. Rumor Mill, not Adam Schefter, but I haven't seen even like a stupid rumor mill of having him going anywhere. So I don't know. I feel like ADs just get bored and they just have money to burn and they're like, what can I spend it on today? And good for him. Not knocking that he got a pay raise. I mean, deserving guy and all that, but it does seem like let's just spend money to spend money, and there was no real need to add on because there was no real threat to him going anywhere. But, I guess that when somebody does come calling, you got to now bump it up to 11 or 12 a year. And then, he can do whenever he gets a little bored and boarding him. So I don't want to make it sound like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, but it just feels like that's a great example of burning money from an athletic director standpoint when there's no real need to. But, when you've got money to burn and there's even more that's going to be coming in these next few years, get ready because $9 million is going to seem like a drop in the bucket for SEC coaches here pretty soon.
But here's the thing. Let's say he keeps winning. But we've seen before, even when it just seemed like they're going to keep winning. Like Baylor did that with Aranda in year 2.
Maybe the institution that he's working at should look to their not so recent past or not so distant past, very recent past, and see that things can change in a hurry. Felt pretty good with Josh Dobbs, a quarterback, didn't they? After that year where, look, they won a couple games. Oh, here we're going to go. And then what you have to do the next year, you had to fire a coach, and you fired a coach, and you fired a coach. So I think Josh Heupel's by and large the best coach they've had in a while and has installed there, but your fortunes can change quickly, and they're bidding against themselves. Like Craig said, they're not bidding against anybody else. They're negotiating against their own offer. But to be fair, if the quarterback's getting 8, then the coach needs to at least get 9. So
yeah, I mean, and that's what they set themselves allegedly $8 million. That's not true, but I haven't seen any reasons to not believe it's not true. You know what I mean? So like people say it's not true, but I haven't seen any reason to not believe that Nico Iamaleava is getting like $8 million over 4 years or whatever the case may be. And if that's total bupkis, fine, point me in the right direction. Other than like Vol Dude 24 saying that's not true, because that's the only evidence I've seen that it's not. Now, granted, haven't seen a ton that is saying that it's true, but guess what? There's no documents to look at, is there? There's no proof to be found anywhere because that's how the system is set up. It's set up that way. So it's all just cloudy. But do y'all know when he signed his last extension?
Last year.
Yeah. $5 million a year.
Yeah.
So he's been bumped up another few million.
Let's make this clear. All of us are thrilled for Josh Heupel.
I'm happy for him.
Because we would absolutely accept it ourselves.
Absolutely.
It's just that we've seen this cycle where it eventually the odds are almost 50-50. They're going to bite you, and you're going to end up paying $25 million in a buyout, et cetera, because of the fact that something happens and you got to get to somebody else.
I don't question them giving Josh Heupel more money. I just question why do it if you – I understand completely rewarding the guy, but I just don't understand when you already did this last year. And, look, they had an even better season, so you reward him even further. But, yeah, I mean, now he's approaching $10 million. And I have to think that there's probably some of it is just the bragging rights of he's the highest paid this and this, or he's the second highest paid. He's not going to be the highest paid coach in the East Division because Kirby Smart will be. But, I guess.
I wouldn't be surprised, Craig, if Kirby Smart doesn't have some sort of clause that he has to be the highest.
I'm sure he
coach.
probably does.
So he might have made another $500,000 today.
So, anyways, I mean, I don't want to make it a big deal, but it just seems silly, to bump that, because next year then you're going to have to probably do the same and then so on and so forth. But, yeah, I mean, get ready for the multiple coaches in one conference making probably 10 or up $1 million per year because he's already knocking on that door, and he's only like the 5th highest paid in the SEC. So that'll just keep going up, and they'll have the money to pay for it, of course. But that's why we are where we are. As much as anything, those coaching salaries and freedom of movement, when you think about NIL and how all that came to be. Those are the reasons that nobody's been able to really shoot holes through when you say, well, why can't players get paid the same? There's a prime example right there.
John Boss, who said Tennessee loves Heupel. We understand.
Yeah,
I said, but why bid against yourself? Again, happy for him. That's just the SEC. Well, they've also had some SEC schools that have hired different coaches that have come back to haunt them a little bit, that they almost wish they wouldn't have bumped it up. We'll ask Mac Rhodes about bidding against yourself extensions when a coach does well, and you want to make sure that, and again, last year Baylor did it with Aranda. You had others calling for him, or at least reports or floating out there, and he turned down the opportunities to talk to anybody. We'll get to that with Mac Rhodes at 4:20 today. Now, Willie Fritz is somebody in demand. The Tulane football coach has done an incredible job, beat USC in the Cotton Bowl. This is a couple of minutes of audio. Ed Daniels from WGNO Sports in the New Orleans area, when he was talking, or others were talking to Willie Fritz about his future.
I'm hoping we're going to get it done here pretty quickly. And, my wife and I made the decision, we really made it a couple years ago, that we're going to finish out our career here at Tulane. I'd love to be able to be here through 2030. That'd be fun.
So you want to retire here, right?
Yeah. This is... we just, where I'm at right now, and with the success we had this past season, we feel like we can, have a good run here, and we just really enjoy it, enjoy the people we work with. That's important too. That's very, very important.
Now, that's great news for Tulane. We've also heard coaches say that before. We've had Willie Fritz on the show. Things can change because all of a sudden, like a massive program has an opening. We heard Willie Fritz's name attached to a couple of places last year. Did not work out. I like him a lot. We appreciated his time. He did one tremendous job at Tulane, and they do have the ability. And with the college football playoff, Craig and Paul, getting larger in a couple of years, and Tulane last year knocking on the door, you have a group of 5 opening whoever's going to win that battle. And right now, Willie Fritz seems to have them positioned in a fantastic spot to at least be one of those that's knocking on that one invitation.
Yeah, I mean, they could absolutely do it. And Willie Fritz is not a young guy either. So I'm not saying he's old, but he's not someone who is going to, Tulane to, say Georgia Tech to then Penn State. Like, that's not probably his career arc at the age he's at right now. And with the playoff expanding, he's got a chance to do some things that a coach at Tulane hasn't been able to do since the 30s.
Which is what I just said.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
so you're
what
not
going to. It makes it a little bit more enticing because it's not like you're blocked out. Craig?
I mean, at 62 years old, he's got to blank or get off the pot at this point if he wants to go build a program somewhere else. I mean, all due respect, but we're reaching life expectancy ages here in the next decade, right? So, I mean, if he were to, I don't even know what spot. I know that there was, rumors about what Georgia Tech, I think, was one for him, and there were a couple others this past cycle. But, it feels like if you were going to do it, you kind of needed to do it at this point. And maybe next year you would do it, but I don't know. I mean, you're sitting there in a really good spot right now. You're coming off the best year possible, and obviously there's even more you could potentially do. Although short odds on that. I mean, doing any better than they did would be like getting to the playoff and doing all that. But like you said, with the expansion here in a couple years, I mean, there's a way for them to get in there. I think when you look at some of the group of 5s that are now bumping up, like in the Big 12, that's less of those, in your category that you're suddenly dealing with. So as far as the non-Power 5 schools go, Tulane's jumped up several spots now, and they've got a good thing going with good roster. So I'm not really all that surprised by that. If he was like 45 years old, I would say, oh yeah, he's absolutely going to go somewhere else at some point, no doubt about it. But he's 62, and that's not the end of the road by any means. But that does limit your If in 5 years he'll be 67, so at 67, I'm just thinking like maybe at that point,
if you have what you want, if you have what you want. Davis Cutter, who's the son of Dirk, who has of course been a head coach throughout all sorts of places in the country. He's now joined the Texas staff as a GA. Thanks for that note from Paxton, who's locked up and loaded today. We've been told there's a couple of little blips here and there as far as with the buffering. We'll try to see what that might be. We will come back with Jacob Unruh from the Oklahoman on Oklahoma State, finalizing some of their staff news, a couple of promotions, one incoming co-defensive coordinator. What does it mean? And that's next on 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on, not only for a great deal, but for great customer service as well. And that's not where I bought my car originally, but that is where I've taken it multiple times now after a wreck that I was in and after just needing some further repairs. I've decided that that's the place that I'm going to go to because they are the people that I know that I can count on. They did a great job with my vehicle in every instance that they've had it in their hands. So if you are looking for great customer service and getting your vehicle all fixed up, well, you can check out Richard Carr Buick GMC Cadillac. But if you're also looking for a vehicle, whether new or pre-owned, definitely give them a look right now. They've got a Texas-sized selection with over 150 vehicles on the lot ready to drive home today. That includes dozens of Sierra trucks. Right now, qualified buyers can get 2.9% financing on 2023 GMC Sierras, or qualified buyers can get 3.9% financing on GMC Terrain SUVs or the entire lineup of Buick SUVs in stock. And when it comes to the Sierras, they offer best-in-class towing, unsurpassed strength, premium comfort. For a limited time, get 2.9% financing, no payments, 90 days. If you're not looking to buy new, they've also got 80 quality pre-owned cars and trucks in stock, many of them under $20,000, affordable, thoroughly inspected, and ready to finance for almost any credit rating. They have quality vehicles ready to drive today. For 23 years in Central Texas, whether it's great customer service, new or pre-owned vehicles, they're stocked up right now and ready to go. Give them a call. Richard Carr has built a reputation as the people you can count on. So check out the website, ring them on the phone like I just mentioned, or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and two-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include
Texas, we were like fish out of water. We didn't know anyone in our neighborhood until our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent came to the house. She was so helpful and reassuring, a friendly face with that Texan hospitality I'd heard about. When we purchased a Texas Farm Bureau insurance policy, we knew we were making the right choice. We knew our family would be protected.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon-wrapped fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes. Cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links. Fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Oklahoma State has tweaked their coaching staff. Obviously, the retirement of the defensive coordinator, Derek Mason. Last year lost the defensive coordinator to Ohio State. They have promoted a couple of different people, but also brought in Nardo as well from Gannon. Thanks for your time, Jacob Unruh from the Oklahoman. So is this off the radar, just Gundy? What connections? Tell us a little bit about the hire today.
It's off.
Okay, hold on. Let's see if we can get Jacob reconnected. He's on his way into Austin to cover Oklahoma State and Texas. God, that's a lot of noise. He's on his way to into Austin to cover the men's basketball game. We'll see if he can reestablish with Unruh. And again, we discussed this, that Gundy's done this before with Yurcich, who's turned out to now be someone that's always a part of one of the Alpha Dog Blue Bloods programs with Ohio State, Penn State, and obviously with Texas as well. So it would be interesting to see what happens with this. We'll try to get Jacob back into a mold. By the way, if you're an Oklahoma State fan, remember the name Rashawn Woods? Two-time, I don't know if he was All-American, but he was an elite wide receiver at Oklahoma State. He today was officially introduced as the new football coach at what was John Tyler High School, which is now Tyler High, the one with Earl Campbell, the one with the famous championship year, the great game with Plano East. He now is the head football coach, comes into Texas after a couple of different stops in Oklahoma, but he was an All-American receiver at Oklahoma State. Rashawn Woods now at Tyler High.
Yeah, he was a great player for the Cowboys a long time ago, it seems like at this point, and definitely a part of one of their better runs in Stillwater. So, knew that Tyler was looking for a coach after moving on from Rickland Holmes, and when I saw that the other day, that was a nice surprise. Didn't know what direction they were going. Saw some teases about what direction they might go, and sure enough, I mean, from a name brand standpoint, for people in my wheelhouse, my age bracket at least, like that's definitely one you're like, oh wow, Rashawn Woods, that's pretty cool. So yeah, I didn't even know that he was in coaching.
I didn't either.
Yeah, must be doing pretty well because that's not just some other job. Tyler High, that's a program, like you said, with Earl Campbell and a lot of others with a lot of history. So I'm sure he'll enjoy living there and enjoy the amount of talent at his disposal, and look forward to seeing him and Legacy lock up in that rivalry game. But yeah, that's an interesting hire.
Well, one of the things that the superintendent mentioned, Marty Crawford, who's played baseball at Baylor, former superintendent just north of here, west, when they had that fertilizer plant explosion, mentioned that where Rashawn Woods has been at Oklahoma, he's won, but none of those places have had the kind of facilities and the depth of what you might have at Tyler High, as far as what TISD, Tyler Independent School District, has done with the athletic department programs, both at what is Legacy now and Tyler High. So I guess Jacob Unruh may be in a bad spot. We lost him. I hope that's what it was, and nothing else. John Voss on the story with Heupel on the contract being torn up in the new one. He said this is what the SEC is. They had it all before, and some coaches who didn't love the Vols, and also some who went wild. Vols simply wanting to cement certainty, and it has the program and the money to do that. John, that's a great point. When you have been searching for somebody since the late years of what, Paul? Phil Fulmer, when they won the national title and been through a 20-year barren, a land of nothing, a desert, and now you find somebody that you've struck gold with, then yeah, you might go ahead and do that. And if you have the money, then go ahead and use the money.
Yeah, it's been a long time, for them to experience. I mean, even look, the success they had this year was even beyond any of the good years any of the subsequent coaches after Phil Fulmer in 1998 had. So yeah, I understand them going, whole hog, so to speak, on this and getting, market value and all that. It's just, I do think that, and I've said this for a long time, that you are bidding against yourself. Look, I get when A&M paid Jimbo Fisher to leave FSU, which is a program that is, has won national titles, and he won a national title there, they were going to have to go big. But they gave him a contract that literally they can't get out of. They kind of have to watch either everything, fly or burn with Jimbo Fisher because of that money. A&M did it too with Kevin Sumlin. They were paying buyouts on Kevin Sumlin. Kansas has done it with several coaches.
Mangino,
Charlie Weiss, David Beatty. Like, they've had to pay buyouts to all these coaches. And at the end of the day, look, if a guy tells you that he wants a raise or he's going to leave, if you don't feel that it's prudent for you to do that, then let him go. But bidding against yourself is only going to cost you money in the long run. But most of the time, I think, to most of these schools, money isn't really real in the way that we think about it. And then when you hear them cry, well, we can't do this and we can't do that, well, maybe don't give a guy an extension and a raise before it's really necessary.
Yeah, I mean, I have nothing to add. I mean, I said my piece earlier on this. Didn't seem like he had to do it, but he did it, so good for him. Good for Josh Heupel. He'll make more money, in the next few years than a lot of people could ever dream of. And if it doesn't work out, then he's got a hefty buyout, and he'll make money regardless. So win or lose, he's winning. And I'm sure there's still a lot of winning left to do at Tennessee. It's not that complicated. It's, just part of the business. I just think that my brief feeling on it was just like, okay, wasn't necessary, but if you want to do that, good for them, good for him, and yeah, we'll see what happens with them moving forward. But that's a team that obviously is on the upswing and has a lot of great moments from this past season to build off of, and some great talent. So obviously there's the big boogeyman in Georgia there, and Alabama, of course, still as well. And I know a lot of others like Auburn, they're trying to race them to go challenge those two, but Josh Heupel seems to have something pretty great going on, so I don't blame Tennessee. Just surprising. I guess it shouldn't be surprising, but just, yeah, that's it.
They had the Mark Mangino, who that just kind of fell apart and became toxic. They brought in Turner Gill, former Nebraska star, who was at Buffalo. He was there for a couple of years. That didn't work out, so they probably had to eat something there. Charlie Weiss was a disaster. At 5-22, 4 games fired into the 2014 season, his third year there. Clint Bowen, the interim coach. Then David Beatty fired at the end of his fourth year at Kansas. And then, of course, Les Miles fired, or at least resigned, and they had a settlement because of inappropriate conduct allegations with female students while he was at LSU. So even that, when he was 3-18. And now you have Lance Leipold. And so hopefully, and it looks like he's brought stability there. He's gotten something out of this because of the interest with Wisconsin, maybe the interest from Nebraska, among other schools. And so you feel for Kansas, but they made that bet. But the Mangino thing was rolling. And then all of a sudden, the investigation into the way he was coaching players and how he was treating them. And next thing you know, that was gone. I don't know what happened to Jacob. We'll try to take a break right here. We'll come back with more. Mac Rhodes today at 4:20. We'll have Pat Nunley, former Baylor guard and now color analyst, and has been for many years for Baylor men's basketball. He'll join us today. Craig's Craig's off the radar at 4:45 and Paul's top 5. This is 365 Sports. Discover Woodway.com, where you can go right now and get tickets for that concert series. They have these throughout the year, and sometimes they come in waves, and then there might be a break, and then there's more. But Oza Motley is coming to town on February the 1st. It is a concert that's going to be at the Pavilion Event Center in the city of Woodway at 1 Pavilion Way. It is a Waco Family and Faith International Film Festival for a performance from the Grammy Award-winning band Oza Motley. Wednesday, opening doors at 5:30, concert 7 to 9. Tickets on sale now. Single ticket, $30. They have table sponsorships available as well. You can ask them about that. And all of this, the fundraising going to the G.B. Lindsay Family Charitable Fund. So come and help join and kick off the 4th annual Waco Family and Faith International Film Festival. Oza Motley, February 1st. Go to discoverwoodway.com.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like First Free Checking, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of health care while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of health care has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs. Even offering financing if that's needed, everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneersboys.com.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street behind the bank.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and you know, I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Well, we have not been able to reestablish connection with Jacob Unruh with the Oklahoma State. He covers Oklahoma State in Austin for the game tonight, basketball game tonight from the Oklahoman. So back to last night with Mac Rhodes at 420. Back to last night with Baylor in Kansas. Baylor was deep in a hole, 0-3. 2 losses at home. Last possession to TCU. Last possession as well to Jerome Tang in Kansas State. They've then got on this roll. Got above 500 with a gutsy win against Oklahoma in Norman. It was Flagler with the dagger, along with Bridges before that. And then here's Kansas. And, you know, you just expect if Kansas loses a game, they're going to win the next 5, or they lose 2 games, they're going to win the next 4. they are right now kind of going through some things. Before we get to a comment from Bill Self about falling behind and how difficult it is and what it does to wear you down, he made a comment. Someone asked him about, so what do you do? This is like the fourth time in the Bill Self era since he arrived 20 years ago that Kansas has lost 3 games in a row. It doesn't happen to them often. And it will be stunning if it gets to 4. I don't know if they've ever lost 4 in a row in their Bill Self. But he made a comment about now is not the time. He understands that this team has a very small room for error. The margin for them is smaller than they've had in probably his 20 years there. And so they're like, do you get on them? Do you kind of push them a little bit? They're going to do that. But he made the comment, he goes, no, this is not the time. This is a war of attrition with this conference. It's not going to be somebody going ripping off 16-2. With all due respect to K-State, if they do that, great. They're right now on a roll with what they've done at 6-1. But then he was also asked about how they have fallen behind in these 3 games, this 3-game losing streak, including last night against Baylor.
Well, it's 3 games in a row. It's probably more than that, maybe. Yeah, I think I think that we can certainly be better in that area. But I'll be honest with you. The way that K-State played the first 10 minutes, the way TCU played the first 10 minutes, and the way Baylor played the first 10 minutes, if we'd have played really well, we would still been behind. Those 3 teams played great. I mean, Baylor made everything they looked at tonight to start, and you know, it felt like they were 4 of their first 5 from 3. I don't know, maybe 4 of their first 6 or whatever. And so, yeah, give them credit on that. But, yeah, it's when you know, Brad Livingstone and the president, you know, we all went to Oklahoma State, and wrestling is big at Oklahoma State, okay? And, you know, when you're on top and you can get riding time, it takes twice as much energy if you're the low man in wrestling as it does playing with the lead and riding time. It's exactly the way basketball is too. And that's a great analogy if you guys want to write it down. But the thing about it is when you're behind, it takes more energy. Everything's magnified. It takes more effort. And when you're playing with the lead, obviously you're looser. Everything's not life or death. And I've always learned that. I always thought that at wrestling, you know, watching those guys at Oklahoma State, how it's so exhausting it is over a course of time. You can definitely wear your opponent out that way.
Bill Self last night being pretty honest, pretty transparent. Thanks to, by the way, Jack McKenzie at the post game last night after Baylor's win against Kansas. And it does make sense. It's kind of like in golf. If you get a couple of strokes behind it, or a couple of holes behind in match play, every shot magnifies how important it is because you have little room for error.
Yeah, but you want to know why Bill Self is so good at his job? Like, there's a guy. Would you have known that guy is on a 3-game losing streak right now?
In different years, you probably would have seen a little bit of a different type response. I think that's what I mentioned before. He kind of he understands that this is going to be a little bit of a different animal for them, the way they have to fight through this, which they've never really had to do.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, even still, I mean, he's coming off the national title. You know, it's his second one, so he can breathe a little easier. Now, there would be probably years where, you know, had they not won the national title just a year ago, fans would be freaking out even more than they are. But he has a realistic look on it from what their roster is, what they're going to have to do, and there's not a get-right game in the conference. There's not those games that, you know, some conferences have 3 or 4 where you can go and have a get-right game. This is a 10-team league, and all 10 teams, even the ones who are struggling, are good. So you don't get a get-right game. Or if you do, it's not something that you were looking to the schedule going, well, if we get to that one, we can work on some things. You just can't, because every team is different. Every team is tough.
Ask Iowa State when they played Oklahoma State this past weekend, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That wasn't a get-right game. That was a stay-hot game. Yeah.
But you can't sustain. You know, you can't, you know, if you have a 9-10 game winning streak in this league, that team is a juggernaut. You know, it's you're not going to lose too many people. So you have to deal with the league night in and night out. And that's every year he makes a comment about Brad Livingstone. My favorite one was somebody asked him one time about their effort down low. And he like his first thing was, well, he doesn't play as well as Brad Livingstone. I think he was talking about like David McCormick, and I'd like turned around and I was like, what?
Yeah,
and he was in there. So
y'all know their next 4 are against?
Kansas plays Texas next. Is that right?
No, they play Kentucky
next, yeah.
Which is not the Kentucky that you typically would think of, but they've gotten better since the Fire Calipari calls like a month ago. They've had a run since then, but you've got Kentucky coming up in the Big 12 SEC Challenge on Saturday, then hosting K-State on Tuesday, then turning around at Iowa State on that following Saturday, and then Texas on Monday night following that at home. So, 3 straight top 12 opponents following their game against Kentucky this weekend, which is in Lexington. So that's also a road game. So, in Lexington, and then against number 5 at home, 12 on the road, and number 10 at home.
Well, and they just played K-State, ranked top 15 when they beat Kansas. They just played TCU in the top 15 or 20, and they just played Baylor, which has been kind of nudging themselves back into the top 20, and it just never ends. Kentucky should be their easiest based on analytics, stats, data, and wins and losses.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. So, they've lost, but they've lost to 3 top 25 teams in a row. And so, take that into consideration. But I think he's a guy who's seen enough basketball and knows his team well enough to know when or when not to panic. And right now is probably not the best time. So I think he handled that well. I think probably having some friendly faces like a Brad Livingstone there probably takes the edge off of it too. But, I mean, the guy's the reigning national champion, so I think Kansas will be fine. But it does go to show you, I don't want to sound like, SEC football guys, but it does go to show you just the danger that you're in this league if you don't show up ready to play on any given night, no matter, who it is. Yes, even the bottom teams can jump up and bite you if you're not careful, and that's not who Kansas has lost to. There's that saving grace that it has been to who it's been against, but, definitely need to break that slide.
And that's why when Baylor was 0-3, the 2 losses to TCU and Kansas State, look where they are and where they have been, both at home, though. That's what hurt, despite the last-minute, last-possession losses. When we come back, a couple of other notes we'll get to. Also, Mack Rhodes in 20 minutes, Baylor Director of Athletics. He was there, of course, at the Farrell Center, and some thoughts and questions for him on many things college athletics. This is 365 Sports. Waco General and Cosmetic Dentistry. That's what Stonewood Dental does. Dr. Steve Childress is the dentist. They have a staff of dentists. They also, of course, have a staff of a lot of people that make your comfort a priority. And they say that's on the website. Stonewood is a one-stop shop for your dental needs. They make your comfort their priority. And I have seen it, felt it, dealt with it, because I've gone into the dentist office on many occasions and I've like, oh my God, what is it going to be today? Sometimes I'm there because it is not a good thing. Something really hurts, whether it's a molar or something's happened to a tooth somewhere else. I've also been there for teeth cleaning, and that's always fun when you know you've been doing what you're supposed to do with your dental work anyway. It's just different. Stonewood Dental is a fantastic place with a great dentist in Dr. Steve Childress. Stonewood Dental in Robinson, Texas has helped me through so many different parts of my dental work, and I'm thrilled to say they're my dentist at Stonewood Dental in Robinson.
Kick off the new year at the Start Something New sales event. Get up to $2,500 in total values and 1.9% for 72 months on all new 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Limiteds at Allen Samuels in Waco.
I hate my job, but I don't mind getting up in the morning. I dread each day, but I can't wait to get out of bed. You ask me why, and what I'll say to you is true. Well, you can get breakfast tacos at Rudy's Barbecue. Scrambled eggs and brisket, they ain't fooling around. Sausage wrap, son, they're the best in town. Barbecue for breakfast, yes, it's true. Put a smile on your morning at Rudy's Barbecue. Next in line.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don's Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics. The team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Boots add protection. Good boots help you climb better and move forward faster. And when your son or daughter steps into the boots of a U.S. Army officer, they also learn how to lead. In these boots, they'll gain more confidence with expert training in one of more than 150 occupational specialties. In these boots, they'll stand a little taller and lead a team with diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise to successfully accomplish whatever challenge comes next. In these boots, they'll earn respect with valuable experience from day one that will give them solid footing for success into the future. Highly qualified candidates who earn a spot on our team can receive comprehensive health care coverage, college tuition assistance, and a bonus of up to $40,000. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
So I saw this today on, Paul, no, you said, is this you?
Yeah,
You sent this to
you.
us on the Twitter text line. No, actually, to on a deal with Craig and me. 16 of the past 17 national champions in college football have come from inside of that circle. Now, I was like looking around, like, oh, okay, where are the other circles? Like, see, because Mississippi doesn't need to be in this circle, but then it wouldn't be a circle.
Yeah.
They just happen to be on the right side of the Gulf Coast.
They're the losers of the circle.
Yeah, no, they
quite
are.
frankly.
They're
I mean,
some
they're
of the
the
reasons
only
these
ones not
yeah.
holding up their weight.
They Mississippi State with Dak had that run. They got the number 1, I think, at one point. That didn't last long, and we know Ole Miss has been in and out the last couple of years with Kiffin. But 16 of the last 17 national champions have been from the state of Louisiana, LSU, the state of Georgia, Georgia, the state of Florida, Florida State,
and Florida,
Alabama, and would have gone back to Florida, Alabama, and Auburn, And then South Carolina is on the very right top tip with Clemson.
Yeah. It's
not even you can't. Never mind. Sorry.
Yeah.
Didn't see one of the logos at first.
Yeah. That's where, I think the angriest Butch Henry, our late co-host, ever got at me was I kind of brought this up one time when he was telling me about that the best talent in high school football is in Texas. And I said, okay, if that's the case, then where are all the trophies? The best talent in high school football is in 3 places. It's in Texas, Florida, and California. And I think era to era, those probably vary. But we're in an era right now that is now about 35 years long, if you really go back to it, maybe even longer.
Since the early 80s. When Miami and Florida State started to run the table.
Yeah, where the Southeast there, that Louisiana, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, and now South Carolina, that's where the majority of the talent's sitting. And that's where people are winning. Now, look, they get people from all over the place, right? But the majority of the talent that goes to state schools is from those states. And that's where they're dominating. And the ebb and flow, I think the true ebb and flow in the whole region is, where does Atlanta and Miami go? Like, where do the most of the best players in those 2 spots go? And when Miami had it, right, Miami was the best. When Florida State had it, Florida State was the best. Alabama and Georgia have it right now, and guess who's the best? When Florida had it,
next to them,
Clemson was going down into Florida and getting players, and they were really doing well in Atlanta. So that's where it's been, and that's where it's moved. LSU is the most interesting one to me because they're the one who's most easily able to grab out of Florida and Texas at the same time because of being kind of in the middle there. In Atlanta, too. But
they don't really grab a lot out of Texas, though. Yeah. They really don't. I mean, they get guys from time to time, but you'd be surprised. LSU does not dip into Texas nearly as often as you would think that they do.
Texas dips into Louisiana, yeah.
No, Texas definitely grabs A&M and UT, and add in Baylor, add in Texas Tech, because I'm sure now with that staff they'll be in Louisiana a lot more now, because when they were around in Waco they always got like a Henry Black or someone like that. But yeah, I think that. It's weird how that works out where LSU really there'll be some guys, don't get me wrong, but they are not relying on Texas at all. But yeah, I mean, I just pulled up, I was trying to find a more updated look at like sort of the blue chip ratio for schools, and maybe I got one here. But yeah, there's different breakdowns. Like, it depends on the site you want to go to. But for example, I think On3's got one from 2022. Of course, there's some like formula to it, but Florida number 1, Texas number 2, California number 3, and they're doing this by like the share of blue chips. Georgia 4, Louisiana number 5, and used to you wouldn't have Louisiana in there. Georgia though and Louisiana are always ones that you would argue. There were always arguments for why they should be higher, and they probably weren't getting enough credit. But I think the SEC's success has now shown that spotlight on both Louisiana and Georgia to now where they are mentioned more regularly like they should be. But forever and ever, yeah, it was just Texas, Florida, California. I'll tell you that the state that used to get mentioned but dropped down is Pennsylvania. That used to be a state that a lot of people mention. But, yeah, I mean, Alabama's got a surprisingly good number of blue-chip athletes for a state that you wouldn't necessarily think just – size-wise has a ton. They've got a ton. Alabama and Auburn are able to feast in-state. They're able to dip in a little bit of Mississippi. But, yeah, I mean, the whole Southeast region, just no matter where you look, north, south, east, or west, you're probably bumping into a top 5 state talent production-wise. And so, I'm sure that plays into it. I think just the passion, I guess is the right word, in that part of the country compared to other places is pretty much unmatched at this point as well when it comes to college football, like as a whole, as a group. So, yeah, there's definitely some shifting that's gone on, but I do think a lot of it's just Louisiana and Georgia getting their proper just due and bumping up a little bit above, former states like or former, places like Pennsylvania.
LSU had 7 players from Texas on their roster last year, like 100 players or whatever it was. 7 of them from the state of Texas. I bet there are rosters in the state of Texas where they have 7 players from Louisiana.
And what's been their thing is they mostly have defensive players. That's what their deal has been. They, I don't know what it is this year. I haven't looked this year, but I know in years past, doing the Earl Campbell Award, I'm looking for offensive players. There's been like nobody on that. You know who it was? The backup running back, Josh. gosh, what was his last name? I forget off the top of my head, but their running back is from Texas. And I was like, oh, wow, that's the first time I've been able to put an LSU guy on there in like 6 years because they haven't had anybody offensive-wise, maybe on the line, but skill guy-wise, they haven't had any big names because their guys come from Louisiana or they come from Florida or they come from, Georgia, all the places that we just mentioned. There's a ton of talent in that Southeast area, and I think that helps explain why we are in this period where we are, where schools all in that area, even with national recruiting, are feasting on that pool of talent.
There's a ton of talent in Georgia. I mean, that's like if you look for bang for your buck.
Josh Williams is who I'm thinking of.
Bang for your buck, Louisiana might be better than anybody as far as the
pound
state.
For pound.
The pound for pound, bang for your buck, population and elite players or high-level players. Yeah, Pennsylvania and Ohio used to be a part of the conversation, and they still are. But the South, what happened in Florida is everybody used to leave Florida to go play for everybody else. And then, wow, here comes Miami, the U, Florida State, Bobby Bowden. Florida was kind of like in a wasteland for the longest time, and then now they keep their own. That doesn't mean you don't go in there and pick and choose some players like Ohio State does or Alabama does or Texas does or Oklahoma or even Baylor. But they locked down their state, which I think used to be kind of like the border.
Yeah.
People were coming through it all the time.
George has become the problem for the three big schools in Florida because they Alabama too, because they can go in there and say like, well, we're not that far. I mean, it's right here.
Most of North Florida grew up Braves and Falcons fans.
Exactly. So if you are from one of those, though, like Jacksonville was a great talent area. Like Jacksonville's very disputed territory. It's where they have the game between Florida and Georgia. So who's ever going to lean? It's pretty interesting. I do think there was an era where Texas probably kind of dominated that as far as what was going on, but it moves and shifts and depends on what people do.
Texas still has as much talent as they've ever had before. The difference is, to me, is a lot of the schools in the South have caught up, not maybe in overall numbers, but bang for your buck. Florida has increased it dramatically, and Texas still has a ton of players because there's so many schools and it's a big state. But, man, those other states have really done a great job of getting better, facilities better, coaching better, and talent better.
Yeah, and I also think there's probably something to do with the movement of people. I mean, Ohio used to be up in that top 5-ish, and they're like top 15-ish now. Pennsylvania, like I mentioned, was probably top 4 at one point, top 5. They're probably top 10-ish now, whereas they're getting replaced by, Louisiana and places like that. So, yeah, it makes sense given where the titles are coming from. You just look in that area, look at the talent ratios, and it's all there to comprehend and make sense.
When we come back, Mac Rhodes, Baylor's Director of Athletics, on the game, the atmosphere last night, game day atmosphere at the Ferrell Center on many things, college athletics, and this is 365 Sports. Marco's Pizza, 5 locations in the Waco area, Bob Maka, the owner. And the last time I saw him, I asked him how business was. He goes, it's great, but we need more people. They need more people in the administration or general manager positions. They need more drivers. They need more of everything when it comes to Marco's Pizza. And so if you want to, go to marcos.com, and then they'll kind of let you look at different areas, states, locations, and you can contact whoever is the one that runs or owns that specific location. In Waco, 5 locations in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, Hewitt, and also Robinson. Marcos.com, pizza lovers get it, and they will deliver to you. Of course, they also online allow and offer you many different menu items with different code words. For example, the pepperoni magnifico, which is just a really good pizza. And if you want thin crust, they can do that. If you want thick crust, you can get that. If you want pizza bowls, they have that, and salads and much more. It is a fantastic place, an incredibly fast-growing pizza magnet, so to speak, as far as company. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
Fans qualified buyers at 5.49% for 72 with 5,000 down, cash or trade, TT and electric, for details. It's the New Year, New Ride pre-owned savings event at Richard Carr with the biggest selection in years on pre-owned cars and trucks. Qualified buyers can find great deals like a 2014 Buick Encore for only $149 a month, or a 2015 Kia Sorento for $237 a month, or a 2015 Ford F-150 truck for $392 a month. Over 80 used, thoroughly inspected vehicles in stock. 100% approval is always our goal. Get here now for the New Year, New Ride savings event at Richard Carr.
At Richard Carr, we give you more.
What are you waiting for? Next year's New Year's resolution to lose weight, get fit, start working out? 3, 2, 1, go to Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness. If you really want to get in shape, get rid of weight or inches, you have to make a commitment to work out. End the excuses of not enough time, you're too tired or too busy. There's a special place that will change your life at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco. And they have a commitment to you too. With personal trainers Christy London, Randall Corley, and Alex Bosch. State-of-the-art Cybex equipment, new weights and spin bikes, clean and spacious locker rooms, each with a whirlpool and sauna, and a staff that will know your name when you walk through the front door. Elite tennis facilities and a great tennis pro in Britt Coleman. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness is a place you can call home, a place you can work out on your own or with 40-plus group exercise classes. It's time for you to get in shape, lose inches, get fit at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lake Shore Drive in Waco.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Chuck Verno, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Chuck Verno, 720 North 64th Street in Waco, 254-732-1161. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Howdy, Chet Garner here, professional guide, searching for bears in the wild. But not just any bears, oh no, a particular kind. With hundreds of thousands roaming freely in the wild, yet still hard to spot unless you know the signs. There they are, Baylor bears. If you're a bear enthusiast or even a bear yourself, join me and let's find some bears in the wild.
Join the expedition at baylor.edu/alumni.
Hi, this is Paul Catalina. I recently got engaged to the love of my life, but the most important thing that I had to do before I popped the question was get that perfect ring. And I know nothing about rings. So I went to the wedding ring store, Boozer's Jewelers on Valley Mills Drive. I knew I needed a custom design, and that's exactly what they do. 9 out of 10 of their engagement rings are designed in-house. The entire process took less than a month, and they were great every step of the way. Great options on financing, excellent selection, and talented designers. My fiance and I get nonstop confidence on the ring. I only deserve credit for doing the smartest thing I could, walking into Boozer's and letting them work their magic. Your one-of-a-kind fiance deserves a one-of-a-kind ring, and that's what you get at Boozer's. Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store on Valley Mills Drive.
Welcome back to 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Our weekly segment with Baylor Director of Athletics, Mac Rhodes, is brought to you by Edward Jones Investment Brokers, Ben Erlinson, Brad Wilson, Cam Heathcott, and Chuck Verno. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Baylor Director of Athletics, Mac Rhodes, with us. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, David Smoak here in studio, just a little bit down the road off of I-35 and MLK, just a little bit west of McLean Stadium, and not far from last night's unbelievable atmosphere, the whiteout at the Farrell Center with Baylor winning their 5th consecutive game. Mac Rhodes joins us on 365 Sports. Boy, what a difference a couple of 2.5 weeks makes, Mac.
Yeah, it really does, right? And, again, just we use the word perspective and just trying to have, great perspective all the time. And obviously 0-3 didn't feel very good, but knew that still a really talented team capable of winning, a lot of games, a lot more games to be played, and there's still a lot more games to be played. So, but I think it's a team that you can see, on the floor that's getting better. And, again, Coach Drew and the staff have done a phenomenal job. And, again, it's, when you're in this business, it's really, really hard to enjoy it. It is. And it's really hard not to get focused on, each and every game, and rather, make sure that you're focused on the process and that is right. And if that's right, then, the individual games, they'll end up taking care of themselves. But, it's a big difference. And last night felt, really, really good. And it's, quite frankly, it feels maybe even a little bit better when you beat Kansas, and that's a testament to that program and who they are. And there was, and you were there, Smoak, in terms of post game, but the talk about Coach Self was asked about Baylor and Kansas, and this budding rivalry, and the two schools that have been dominant within the Big 12 over the last 3 years, last two national championships, the 2020 season, right? COVID, both would have been number one seeds, and so it's been a lot of fun, and they certainly are a great program, but so are we.
Mac, how does your mentality as an AD change when you win a national championship in something, especially something like men's basketball, which is highly competitive, and it's really hard to maintain the consistency of where you finish because of the tournament. How much do you change the way you look at the program, and then how much you have to remind yourself that as long as we're pointed down this direction on the river, we have to kind of trust the process and ride and get through the rapids as opposed to reacting to every little bump?
Yeah, it's that's a really, again, thoughtful question. I think you process and you think about it. There's a lot of different ways, right? So one of them is, we've got to move forward like we've never done this before. That we're still chasing that, right? There can't be any complacency. You can't, let your foot off the gas pedal, etc. We've got to now. It's over, and we've got to reset and start that journey all over again, and be, as hungry as we were, the year previous. That we have to have that same hunger, that same fire in the belly when we think about going about our business and striving to be the very, very best. There's also the piece where things just naturally change. And, you think about, the team that won the national championship, and, I would describe it as an older team. And so now all of a sudden you win a national championship, and you think about recruiting. And, I think it even started, the year before when you're number one seed, all of those things, and the type of players, when you think about recruiting and now one and dones. Well, how do you manage that? And so, that's a whole new challenge. And, as you enter into that, how's that going to work? What are the positives? And there's a lot of positives to it, but there's also some negatives. And how do you manage that? And so, just knowing and understanding that because you won a national championship, there are going to be some organic changes that you're going to have to navigate. And then I think finally it's expectations. And, now, that's the bar, and everybody expects, that to be the outcome or certainly close to the outcome each and every year. And so how do you not get caught up in that and again, stay focused on process and really double down on the things that got you there. So, that's a little bit of, all of the things that we talk about and are intentional about.
Mac, I know you're getting tired of answering the question because it's been pushed back, delayed, whatever. We've even sensed your frustration along the way. 2 questions, though. It's January 24th, a week from today. It's the last day of January. Brett Yormark was in town. Did he and you discuss much more of the board about the damn schedule being released for football? And number 2, has anyone in the Big 12 that's a part of the original, at least even those leaving, has anyone suggested they didn't want to play anybody in the incoming 4?
So, I go back to our last a week ago. I do believe there'll be clarity on the schedule consistent with what,
Brett has mentioned, or Commissioner Yormark has mentioned, by the end of this month. And so there's certainly still some days remaining. And I do, obviously in communication with him and I do feel like it's certainly trending in that direction and it will happen. And, the 4 new incoming, I think, certainly the 8, there's never been conversation about not wanting to play. And then I think if there's ever been any conversation about the other 2, it's just been mainly tied to, are we gonna be here, all the way up to the end of the contract? Are we not going to be up to the end of the contract? And so I think if there's been any of that type of conversation, it's always been tied to, when they will no longer be a member of our conference.
Is there any chance that there could be more delays because anybody decides they don't want to play Cincinnati or UCF, Houston, Brigham Young? Is that even on the table? Is that possible to let happen?
No. That and again, I certainly don't, anticipate, not meeting, I guess the self-imposed deadline on, the end of January. But no, none of that, and that certainly hasn't been the cause for delay.
Mac, I know there's the whole announce your intent to leave and a certain amount of months, 18 months, what have you, but that can be flexible. Is there any sort of a drop-dead time frame in terms of Texas and Oklahoma, and if, in fact, this would be their last year, or if, in fact, they're going to ride it out for the 2 years remaining on the contract? When would you guys have to know that by, or need to know that by, want to know that by?
Yeah, Craig, I think if you get kind of backed into that timeline, I mean, for me, I think absolutely you'd want to know no less than 12 months in advance. You'd like 12 to 18 months, and I think that clarity will happen within that time frame, right? July 1, 2023 is when the 4 new become official members. So you certainly that 12 months from then, and so you back up from then, and so I think we're in this period of time, we're in this window right now as we speak that you would hope that we would know one way or the other.
Mac, we were discussing earlier today, Josh Heupel got a new contract, had a heck of a year, Tennessee's first 11-win season in 21 years, and he's going to get reportedly $9 million a year. Do you think college programs, athletic departments bid against themselves sometimes that have helped create the salary structures rising at a dramatic rate? I'm happy for Josh. We're happy for Aranda, whoever gets him. But are there times where it's hard not to bid against yourself?
Yeah, it is. And, the moment the one school does it, then, that's the new bar, right? And then everybody's chasing it. I think the real question is, how sustainable is that? And, there's more institutions than not. When we think about Power 5, there's more institutions than not that cannot afford $9-10 million a year. There's only a handful that can, and so this is part of the conversation that's been going on within the NCAA that will continue to go on. Is we use the word sustainability, and sustainability with coaching salaries, sustainability with name, image, and likeness, etc. I don't believe, and I think most of us, I can speak for most of us, don't believe we're on a pathway of sustainability. And now you add into maybe through name, image, and likeness, more money's going to student athletes, and that conversation and how that competes, again with coaches' salaries, etc. So we're in this really dynamic time, this time of change, and as a leader, you better be an adaptive leader, and I think I've said this before. I don't know that there's any such thing as best practices anymore. We're kind of developing them as we go, and so apologize for the long answer, but there's I think we're all going to be pressed with a sustainability issue, and for us at Baylor, when you think about our number one and everybody's number one source of revenue is via the conference, and that's derived through TV, it's derived through CFP, it's derived through men's basketball NCAA tournament, and so you just, and you think about Baylor and 45,000 seats, etc. We've got some limitations, and that's why I think we're so focused on our process, on our culture, because at the end of the day, if we're trying to compete against people, resource for resource, that's going to be really, really hard for us to do. And so we've got to find other ways, other nuances, the Christian faith piece for us. And, that's got to be, something that we double down on. And I think, can be an advantage for us. I think many people look at it as maybe a disadvantage, but it can be a great advantage for us. And so, just trying to navigate all of this and trying to make sure that, we Baylor continue to be nationally relevant in all of this. And, the conversation, I've had, quite frankly, with our head coaches as, we've got to look at this as a 10-round heavyweight fight. And we're going to take some body blows in the early rounds. And we are. And I think we're right in that process right now where we're taking some body blows. And, we had this pendulum when we think about, name, image, and likeness, and it was hung up here on the, on the right side, so to speak, and just building and building and building. And then all of a sudden, boom, you can do it. And because of all of the weight on it, momentum, it swung all the way over to the left. And that's where we are right now, trying to deal with it. And that's where we're taking some body blows because, we've done a great job of GXG has done a great job of raising money for it, et cetera. But again, if we're trying to match, some other, institutions, it's really difficult when you think about, the base of our donors and, our number of alumni and all of that. But that pendulum will gradually, slowly come back down and law of averages. And so, we're going to take some body blows, but as long as we continue to focus on our process, our culture, not stray from our Christian values, I think it's a fight in the later rounds. We're going to end up winning, and in fact, I know we are, and that's kind of how we process it and we look at it. But it's really hard when you're taking body blows and you're seeing some other schools do some things that you're just not going to do. And so again, that's quite frankly where we are right now.
Mac, you mentioned name, image, and likeness, and the University of Florida had an instance just a week ago where a recruit, a guy who committed, signed, asked and was granted his release from his national letter of intent because he had made a deal reportedly with a collective. They could not deliver on the money of that deal, and then all of a sudden the team, the school, and everybody's kind of sent reeling to do this, and One of those things we've talked about, guardrails and rules, especially with NIL, do we need to maybe in the new governance take down the facade that coaches and universities can't be involved in this on a higher level? Because Billy Napier has to just he knows what's going on, but he can't be involved. He can't tell a kid all of a sudden, like, hey, I don't know if these guys have the money. It just puts him in a weird spot all the way around. So how do we do this to protect all sides to where we don't have a situation like this where somebody says, here's this amount of money, and then they have to go and scramble to raise it, and they don't have it, and then everybody's kind of screwed in this?
Yeah, so, what happened at Florida, and, it's the ugly part of name, image, and likeness. And, to me, name, image, and likeness in its truest form and the way it was intended to be is a really, really good thing. But unfortunately, because there really weren't any guardrails other than, a bunch of different state laws, it's been chaos. And so what happened at Florida is part of that process where that pendulum is starting to swing back toward the middle. And it's starting to swing back toward the middle because there's, locker room issues and, maybe not being able to make a payment or pressure on a young person to perform at a high level and even more pressure. And they're not. And now all of a sudden, a donor's like, no, I thought we were going to win a national championship. We didn't. And so I'm not going to invest that much. Or, you told me that this player was, All-American and wasn't, so but that takes time and that's not going to happen overnight. So that's the pendulum, the ball swinging back toward the middle. My honest opinion, and again, I can only speak for myself, but I think name, image, and likeness needs to come back and be under the umbrella of the university. And it needs to be, for example, most likely underneath your fundraising arm. And this notion, we all read stories 20, 30 years ago, college athletics and boosters paying, student athletes. And, we have a school, unfortunately, up north that, had the death penalty because of, well, we basically set up that same system right now. It's crazy to think about that. And it's, for me, logically, it's really hard for me to wrap my mind around it. And so I think it needs to come under, the athletics department. And I think, there's a possibility, maybe 2-3 years that it can. And I think there needs to be a clearinghouse in terms of, maybe it's independent. Maybe it's not within the NCAA, but it's out the NCAA, and deals at a certain level, threshold and above, need to be looked at and approved closely. And there needs to be, a separate enforcement that it can be timely, it can be swift, it can be immediate. But that's, my opinion. And I don't think I'm alone in that. But that's where it needs to head, Paul, is it needs to come in underneath. Now, that opens some things up to, Title IX and all of that, and, fairness in terms of who's receiving monies, et cetera. So, not by any stretch, not a perfect solution.
Mac, I was taking a look at y'all's the non-conference schedule next season, and it's Utah obviously heading to Waco, but Texas State as well. But is there any kind of an update on who that third non-conference game or when that might be determined or announced?
Craig, that's a great question, and my mind is scrambling in the memory banks, and I think we're there, but it's probably something. If you ask me next week, I'll have a much better answer.
Okay.
So I do think we're close, if not there, but certainly hasn't been anything that I know we're there, and just quite frankly going, man, I thought we announced it, so maybe we did, and I'll have a better answer for you in a week.
Mac, I know you brought this up with Craig and Paul last week. Last question for me, that the women's basketball team lost Sunday. I know Nikki has had to deal with injuries. They had Nalissa Smith and Egbo last year that helped win the Big 12 title. They've had the injury that hurt with Asia Blackwell. They've had the delay in the eligibility of Dre Edwards. But there's a fine line in what is elite and then just kind of there. How concerned are you? Not that Nikki can't coach or recruit, but is there a little bit of trepidation right now about where the program is?
No, not at all. Now let me make sure I'm really clear. That doesn't mean that any of us accept losing well, because we don't, and it's not our standard. But it goes back to process, and Nikki has my 100% support. She's an elite coach. We've had some different things happen. Unfortunately, when we think about injuries, which you just mentioned, or not having somebody eligible, we have young players. So we have a lot going on. But again, I think. You think about the process. You think about who's leading the process, the accountability of the process, and I feel really, really, really good about it. We're going through a tough stretch, but we'll be all right, and I'm really, really confident about that. And the Baylor women's basketball program under Nikki Collin will be nationally relevant here in the future. There's no doubt in my mind.
All right, thanks for your time. By the way, the game day, the atmosphere yesterday was incredible. I know sometimes that not everyone's always happy with anything. I thought whatever the decisions that were made across the board, it seemed like it was just flawless, last night. And winning also helped.
Yeah, winning helped, and your opponent and selling it out and all of those things. But our fan engagement team has done a lot of different things, right? They've tried new things. They've worked really hard about it. The DJ, the balloons, turning the lights down, during the game, all of those different things. And again, it's continual, right? But, I want, everybody to imagine, and first of all, thank you to all of our fans for coming out and making that an elite, environment. And again, hats off to and really proud of our fan engagement team. But now you think, 11 months from now, when we go into the Foster Pavilion, capacity of 7,500, we have a real opportunity for that game environment that we all experienced last night to be every night in the Foster Pavilion. And that's why we made a decision, to build new, to build smarter, smaller, to have, steeper rate fans right on the court, because we want that environment that we had last night. We don't want it just 2 or 3 or 4 games, home games, a season. We want it every game. And that's the vision. And I think that's where we're headed. And again, just, last night was a lot of fun. There was so much energy in the building, and, really appreciate our students were awesome. Fans awesome. And again, really proud of our fan engagement team.
Thank you, Mac. Appreciate your time. As always, Mac Rhodes, Baylor's Director of Athletics, with us on Tuesdays in this hour. So the schedule, 1 week from today, ends January. Some of you on the chat room asking, those on Twitter asking. I mean, Yormark was in town because it was Texas and Baylor, and also the game with Kansas. So, that's trending up. There's always something that could be a fly in the ointment, but there has been discussion that at least the noise about, is there any way that either Texas or Oklahoma, using both those schools, are they going to say, hey, wait a minute, if the algorithm kicks us out 3 of the incoming 4, we don't want that. Maybe that's also been a part of it. He kind of delayed answering that when I first asked the question.
Yeah, I mean, all due respect to Mac, I think he's probably trying to say the smart answer there, because I wouldn't put it past OU or Texas to not want to play certain schools, and the way he reacted makes me think they absolutely, in some form or fashion, maybe not to the letter of each word, like exactly the way you stated it, but in some fashion they probably did say that, yeah.
Look, if you told me that they're at the meeting and they're like, all right, on October 27th, we've got Texas and Provo, and OU, you guys are in Orlando, and if one of them went, can we, like, that wouldn't surprise me. Or if they said, like,
wait a minute, Texas has played in Provo. I think Oklahoma's, I don't know if I know they've played BYU, but I believe they've been there. You're talking about Cincinnati, Orlando, or Houston.
Yeah, that's probably
Let's be
true.
honest.
Yeah, that's probably
With all
true.
due respect to those programs, with Cincinnati last year's run in 2021, and Houston, the old rivalry, and, of course, UCF, an upcoming young program that's doing a pretty good job where they are.
Yeah, I think they already have a superiority, feel over the schools they're in the conference with to begin with. So do I believe they could have one over these schools that are not in the conference yet? Yeah, I absolutely do believe that. Yeah, I absolutely do. But I don't know. I don't know how much say they actually have. If Texas came to me and said, well, we'll do this, but we absolutely don't want to do that. Well, the first thing I would do is schedule the thing they absolutely don't want to do, because what are they going to do about it, right? So I don't know, like, when it comes to that, of if somebody does bark and say that they don't want to do something, how much leverage do they have to force you to not make that happen? You know what I'm saying? So I don't know what that back and forth must be like, but there's clearly some back and forth going on. Like, I know one of the other sports media sites, again, basically just rehashed and reported again that I don't know how much of a rehash it was, but, just bringing back up the likelihood of them leaving early, and that's what's delaying the schedule, is that, in fact, them trying to negotiate. How do we do this with all in this next year? And that's what's taken so long, is just trying to negotiate the exit and what that will entail, and then how you work the schedule, because obviously you can't just do home and away the next 2 years. You have to do whatever you do this year and then eliminate 2 teams and scrap it and start all over again in the following year. So that all makes sense. And I just, I'm looking forward to seeing it whenever we actually get to see it here, hopefully in the next week or so. But sounds like there's still, room that could be a day or two past the start date. So we'll see. But, yeah, clearly a lot of moving pieces. And I asked about that third non-conference game because there's not one. I mean, you looked at me, there's not
which one? Oregon? Not Oregon.
No, they play Utah and Texas State.
Yeah, okay.
There's not a third game.
Yeah.
So here we are. It's January. There's plenty of time. But I know people have asked me, like, who are they playing in the non-conference? And I asked it, too, because I wonder, like, well, shoot, you had an extra conference game in here or something? I know you can't do that at this point. But, yeah, I'll be curious to see who that is.
All right, when we come back, Craig's off the radar. Pat Nunley on Baylor's 5-game winning streak, Baylor color analyst on the radio, and also Paul's top 5. This is 365 Sports. Pioneer Steel and Pipe, bigger, better, faster, and stronger. The new location just east of I-35 in the southern part, southeast of Waco. New facility has more than twice the size of the old one that was there since 1943, allowing them at Pioneer Steel and Pipe to carry new inventory, higher quantities of inventory in a much more organized fashion. Addition to the standard long lengths in tubing, angles, channels, rods, and flat, they now carry several shorter, more convenient lengths of material already cut, which will save time for anyone who doesn't need or can't haul the long lengths and the time to cut it. Also, the 2,500 square foot showroom with over 1,000 new products on display in stock, all new. Welding supplies, hardware, do-it-yourself components for any project, and also a professional contractor or weekend warrior, it is there for you. Since 1943, the tradition, the excellence, the product, the customer service at a new location, Pioneer Steel and Pipe, pioneerboys.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon wrap fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes. Cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. It's time for Craig Smoak's Off the Radar. Brought to you by Pickup Outfitters. Since 1997, we've been outfitting trucks, SUVs, and vans at 220 Lake Air Drive or createacommotion.com.
Welcome back into 365 Sports. Time for a little Off the Radar. As we do on Tuesdays and Thursdays around 4:45, taking a look at a grab bag of stories from around the world of sports that aren't necessarily always under our microscope or on our radar, hence the name. But diving into it here, looking at that report that I just mentioned. So this actually was somewhat on the radar, but that was, I think, Sports Business Journal had a updated story just yesterday on the Oklahoma-Texas situation. And basically the way it was summarized was, again, what can we trade you that you would like to make this satisfactory for all parties? So I think we're still looking at some sort of string of games, like Texas has to play Texas Tech for a year and Oklahoma plays Oklahoma State for a year, and something along those lines. But I just wanted to make sure that was updated. And that's where we sit, is still just trying to figure out what the deal is going to be eventually with this schedule. But it does look like a lot of that is just purely negotiations at this point. Did you guys see Blake Corum and the story of his stolen Camaro?
Yeah, that's very unfortunate.
Yeah, Michigan running back Blake Corum announced he's coming back after an All-American year. He's got a 2017 Camaro, or he had one. It's pretty sweet. Had his BC2 logo on it, had a camouflage wrapped job on there as well, paint job or wrap job on there, but apparently got stolen from a parking garage just a couple of weeks ago, according to the Ann Arbor Police Department. And he tweeted today, because I guess he was getting a lot of like NIL tweets or something along those lines, but whatever provoked it, he said that his parents used their hard-earned money to buy him the car after he graduated from high school, and he said, God bless whoever stole it. He had made his decision, and the car was stolen a few days later, so I'm sure he won't have any hard time trying to replace that. I'm sure there are some probably Michigan NIL donors or whatever fund that was created to help spur him to come back. But, yeah, you saw that, and I think a lot of people were like, oh, that's NIL money. It wasn't. His car's stolen. It's still missing. But that's the good news is now you can just be transparent about it and be upfront. And, look, if a new Camaro dealer in Ann Arbor wants to come and give him a car, it's all on the up and up. So
yeah, that'd have launched an investigation back in the day. Yeah,
exactly. This would have been Eric Dickerson part 457 or whatever it was. You know, I know there's a whole thing with Alabama players a few years back when they were posting their cars. Everybody's like, "How are y'all all in Dodge Chargers?" You know, that kind of thing. And now it's just on the up and up. So I found that not particularly interesting that his car was stolen. I think that sucks. The car looked pretty sweet from what I saw, old pictures of it. But I do like that we can just be like on the up and up and be like, yeah. So if anything, probably put it out in the media is the quickest way to get a new car versus what it would have been like to just go the old ho-hum insurance route. But he was a good sport and said, again, God bless whoever stole it. But speaking of Michigan, one of the hot topics, and there have been many surrounding them, whether it was, guys coming back and Blake Corum coming back and, obviously Jim Harbaugh and him coming back and what, all that took to get to that point as far as rumors and wading through those and NFL opportunities and all of that. But one of the things that dates back to the start of last year and maybe even points before that as well, but really got put out on the radar this past fall was the Michigan tunnel situation. And it was James Franklin, Penn State head coach, who brought it up when his team, the Nittany Lions and Wolverines, got into it in the tunnel. He called the single tunnel a problem, if you'll remember, that needed to be addressed. And then obviously there was another issue a few weeks later when Michigan and Michigan State got into it, and you got a Michigan player getting jumped by a group of Spartans and charges being brought against a few of those Michigan State players. But, there's been thing after thing. But Michigan did announce at one point in time that they had launched a safety review of the tunnel and taking into account things or considering things that should be taken into account when it comes to what to do about the tunnel moving forward. And after launching that safety review and I guess getting a review, they are going to, or they have sent a notice to season ticket holders in Section 1 on the south side of the tunnel that about 45 seats will be permanently removed to help widen the tunnel access. So they are addressing that, and the idea is that there will not be any issues like there were a couple of issues this past week. So the big house will be undergoing some minor makeover. They're going to widen the tunnel and hopefully avoid some issues going forward.
Yeah, I remember when it all happened, there were a lot of people who played in the Big Ten. They're kind of like, yeah, we always kind of waiting for this one thing to happen in the right kind of game. And maybe just the powder keg of circumstances didn't exist until what happened this year. But there were a lot of times I heard guys like, I remember walking down that tunnel with Michigan and, feeling tense and worrying about like what's good. Like things are said, you're right there in the tunnel. And it does seem to be a simple fix. And if you look at most modern stadiums where the old ones, had people coming out from the same tunnel at different times. Look, the Baylor players and the visitors come out from different spots completely. There's never going to be
complete opposite corners.
If you were going to have a fight in the tunnel, it would have to be planned, organized. You'd have to have like a
There's
big
150-yard difference.
It's a lot. So
I still don't understand why sometimes in some places teams come back into the tunnel like at halftime, cross over. Like that's got to be. You would think that'd be organized a little bit better. That's just asking for a match in gas or light.
And since everything in college sports is a pissing contest, you don't want to lose seating, right?
Yeah.
You're the big house. You got to have this certain amount of seats, so they will be putting standing room only seats into the big house now to help offset the loss of the 45, 50 or so seats that will be removed to expand that tunnel. So the big tunnel controversy has been addressed by the University of Michigan, and they are going to be making some changes.
That standing room only situation at AT&T Stadium is kind of silly.
I wouldn't enjoy that.
No,
I
I
want to sit down
at
some point and watch the game. Like, what are we doing here?
I've been walking in to the press box when they open the doors and watching adults scramble to get a table where you're going to be standing if it's noon and the game's at 3:30, where you're now going to be standing at that table, you and your friends, guarding it for 8 hours.
Yep.
Like, that's basically what you're about to do. So it's very bizarre.
Yeah, I don't know how they'll address that, if they'll have like a similar setup, but there will be standing room seats, so they will be offsetting the losses there, as I mentioned. And, the tunnel getting reworked, so hopefully no incidents in the future there. Scheduling has not, even though I just brought it up with Mac Rhodes, I just trying to figure out who Baylor's playing in their third non-conference game next year. But, as far as these way in advance announcements that we used to get all the time, it seemed like the people were like 20 years in advance, like Oregon's playing Texas Tech or whatever. I don't see that nearly as often nowadays. It's not as big of a deal, I think, because everybody realized how absurd it was to start talking about games 25 years before they're going to be played. But this one did catch my attention because it involves a school that will be in the Big 12 at this point in time, but LSU and the Houston Cougars have agreed to a non-conference game that will be played in 2027. It will be a part of the Texas kickoff down in Houston at NRG Stadium on Labor Day weekend, so sometime between the 4th and the 6th of September, presumably. They've already announced it'll be on the ESPN networks in some form or fashion. But yeah, this is just a cool little regional rivalry. Obviously, Louisiana and Houston are almost one and the same. Sometimes it feels like, and certainly there's that proximity that you always feel with like Houston and New Orleans, kind of, very neighborly. So U of H and LSU 2027 Texas kickoff in Houston. I know it seems forever away. It's only 4 years away though, 2027. So this isn't too crazy, but go ahead and put that on your calendars. Meanwhile, an update from Bethune-Cookman over the Ed Reed, situation where he agreed to become their head coach, and then the parties decided to go their separate ways after he openly, voiced concerns, and I guess some people probably took it as complained or what have you, about the state of the campus and offices, and was very vocal and what he thought of just certain things. And it rubbed some people the wrong way. And ultimately, the two sides go their separate ways. But I mentioned in our discussion about Ed Reed yesterday that there was a protest on Bethune-Cookman's campus, and they did take note of that. The administration did. And I think that's why today you saw a letter from Dr. You saw a letter from, Dr. Lawrence Drake, who posted this on the school's website, a letter saying, first, I was very proud of the manner in which our students handled themselves during yesterday's student gathering. It was orderly. It represented the best intentions of students sharing their voices. And while social media and media outlets have seized on not continuing negotiations with NFL Hall of Famer player Ed Reed, many of our students chose to use this moment to voice their concerns, and that the administration took no issue with it. He said in the coming days he will meet with student leaders to address many of the concerns and answer questions as honestly as possible, and said to close the chapter on Mr. Reed, he was a tremendous player, but as we continued to observe him, we felt his behavior was not aligned with the traditions of our founder, Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune, or the university. They have, according to Dr. Lawrence Drake, 50-plus inquiries concerning the head coaching spot, and are very excited about their candidate pool. They also will have a football player representative who will be a part of the upcoming coaching search, and they hope to announce the next head coach in the next week to 10 days. So there it is. They've got a bunch of candidates, according to him. Protest didn't bother them. They appreciate the voicing of concerns. But adding on to that, some of the concerns listed are simply upkeep and cleanliness and things like that. There's somebody posted a clip, and I don't know how accurate anything there is, but it's showing an HBCU game, and I only briefly saw it, but guys were sharing a helmet on the sidelines. Now, maybe a guy just forgot it, but maybe there is something to that, and that's the kind of shorthandedness you're talking about when it comes to resources and everything. So he says that over the last year, they've begun a complete assessment of all facilities and have, made determinations on construction projects to enhance the campus. He announced the companies that they've already assigned to work with, and they are going to revamp things, it appears, on the campus of Bethune-Cookman. So they're assessing over 100 buildings. So just following up on that, they had to read things over, but they have 50-plus candidates, and they're looking at some ideas to enhance the campus life and improve some things around Bethune-Cookman. So thought that was a nice and worthy follow-up. And good for them to be doing that. Feels like probably what they should be doing.
Something may have been, maybe something learned by
maybe everybody. Some of those comments were true about the fact that it's not, probably not as good as it possibly can be. So I think he knocked out every concern, though, with that letter. And so we'll see the next week to 10 days, I think that's said, as far as them announcing a new head coach. Pickleball is one of the fastest rising sports in the country, and apparently the Association of Pickleball Professionals has come to an agreement with ESPN and CBS, who will broadcast 16 APP Tour events. Front Office Sports reports that 12 hours of live matches will take place on CBS Sports Network. 8 hours of an event recap telecast will be on ESPN2. There's also multiple hours of streamable matches that will be available on ESPN Plus and the APP TV app as well. But 2 years in a row, ranked the fastest growing sport in America. And they've got a whole tour event. And so now pickleball is coming to your television screens thanks to ESPN and CBS.
Well, that Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, they've always had an incredible tennis facility. And they now have like 300 people as a part of their pickleball group. It is insane. They've hosted national tournaments. It is absolutely like fire ants out there is what they're doing. And a lot of different facilities, too.
Yeah, pickleball seems to me to be a sport that would be super fun to play, but I'm not sure. Like darts. I really like playing darts, but I'm not going to watch darts on television.
Oh, I will. There's some moments when that's as fun as anything. Those crowds over in England, pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Dart tournaments?
Yeah.
I haven't seen that. That'd be
You haven't seen darts on TV?
I've seen darts on TV. I just
TV.
never like.
It's kind of like I never thought I would ever be interested in watching poker on television, and I can't take my eyes off it once I start watching it. If it just happens to be a channel.
I kind of got over it. I don't know.
I had that moment like 15 years ago.
Yeah, it's not something I'm like going to search up. But if I happen to, as a day it's slow, I'll sit in and watch it a little bit.
I watched it a little bit. Then like everybody started like looking really douchey to me on the screen. I was like, I don't know who I can root for here.
Well, it's when they all get once you get the attention, then everybody gets to become personalities, and then that's when it kind of loses some of its luster some of the time, but raises their bank accounts, I'm sure. So pickleball is coming to your TV screens, and you know what? I'll leave it right there because I know we got a guest coming up, but those are a few things off the radar.
You're good because Pat running a little bit late. Do you have any of the ratings or numbers or anything like that? I know that you always do that. I'm interested in that.
Yeah, NFL playoff numbers from this past weekend. I'm actually glad you mentioned that. I meant to put that in there, but had it off to the side on another tab here. But Cowboys 49ers, most watched game of the NFL season. Surpassed the previous high that was set by Giants Cowboys on Thanksgiving. As back on Thanksgiving, you had a monster number when it came to Cowboys and Giants. It was that 42.06 mark, but Cowboys and 49ers on Sunday, 45.65 million. The most watched divisional round game since Packers-Cowboys 6 years ago, which hit 48.5 million, and second most watched divisional game of all time. But huge mark for Cowboys and 49ers with 45 plus million people.
All right, I'm going to ask you this. I understand that the Cowboys are like printing money. In the NFL, and for most of the first couple of days I've seen when I'm on the treadmill running, I have my earbuds in, whatever, it's about Dak and the Cowboys. And even and if they would have won, then it would, my God. But they do get the prime time location a lot, that 325 slot, because networks are smart. This was a, 5:30 or so start. How many people would have watched that if that game would have been at noon? 40 million?
Yeah, I don't know. I
mean, would it be the same? I mean, it's like you're putting it right in front of like digestive, like everybody, they want NFL football. I mean, it's just amazing the numbers they put up, whoever they play, what time. But they do get a lot of prime time because of what the numbers show.
But what point are you trying to make that they would have?
How many would they have had if that game would have been a noon kick?
I still think they have 40 million people.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a playoff game.
I said 40 million. That's what I'm thinking. But
it's a playoff game. So, I mean, yeah, maybe they got an extra couple million because of the timing of it. But Cowboys 49ers for a spot in the NFC Championship game, I think that's going to do fine at 8 a.m.
And it was a close game. All right, now, they had Monday night, so they're positioned there. It's smart with Brady and the Buccaneers. They route them. Who now takes center stage? Of the 4 teams, popularity, Niners, Eagles, Chiefs, and Bengals.
I think Chiefs and the Niners. I mean, the Niners
Chiefs are the bandwagon team now.
Yeah, they're the bandwagon team now. But the Niners have legacy fans like the Cowboys do, for years and years. And not that the Bengals don't, but they were so bad for so long.
And they were good enough to make the playoffs, but never win.
Yeah, the Chiefs have legacy fans too, but they don't. Yeah. But they have a bunch of Patrick Mahomes fans now. Right. Is what they have. They don't have Chiefs fans. They have Patrick Mahomes fans.
The Eagles, to me, is kind of
That's
one of the
pretty loyal fan base.
Yeah, the Eagles.
No, it is, but it's definitely more popular now because of Patrick Mahomes.
But like as far as national fan bases go, like. I think the 49ers probably have the biggest because of Montana and Young and all those things
Clark,
people
Jerry Rice,
that grew up. Yeah, so as where the other ones, maybe their national fan base are big. Philadelphia is interesting to me because I really have never met many Eagles fans that came to it because they just kind of like the Eagles. Like, you're an Eagles fan because you're from Philly, you're from that area, you like the Eagles. Like, it's not like the Packers or the Raiders or the Cowboys or something like that where you can kind of be a fan of everywhere. If you're a Philly fan, you are a fan of, like, you're from there, more or less. Or your family's from there, something like that. I don't meet as many. And look, I've lived all over the place, including in South Florida where everybody's from somewhere else. And I didn't meet many Eagles fans. I met a ton of Giants fans. I met a ton of other fans, but never really Eagles fans. Weird. Bears, like everybody.
I mean, what reason do people have to bandwagon them until now, basically? I mean, until the last few years. They hadn't won a Super Bowl until recently. They were third wheel at best in their division.
Who, the Eagles?
Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes third and fourth because Dallas and Washington or the Giants were always at times pretty good.
They were like the fourth wheel. So, I mean, but you're right about as far as Philly people, they are loyal to Philly. But, yeah, I think that's as much of a reason why. So elsewhere, you had Cowboys 49ers, most watched game of the season. Higher than the Giants-Cowboys on Thanksgiving. Meanwhile, Bengals-Bills averaged a 20.1, but that equated to 39.3 million, which was up a little bit from Rams and Buccaneers last year, which was the most divisional watch game early Sunday window. So an uptick there. Also, Jags-Chiefs, that wasn't as popular. That was third popular, 32.3 million for Jaguars and Chiefs, a slight uptick in the ratings from last year's similar slot. And then the what they I guess categorize as the low number was the Eagles and Giants, 28.64 million. So they lost over 10 million viewers from
and they
most every other game.
I wonder if there's a little recency issue. Plus, it's the Eagles and Giants. Is even a playoff game, which it was. The Giants, you wondered if they knew that. Okay.
Yeah,
right.
So you had nearly 40 for the Chiefs winning. You had over 40 for the Cowboys and their loss to the 49ers. But then you had a pretty big drop-off to 28 for Eagles-Giants, down 23%. And 23% in the ratings, 22% in viewership from last year's Packers-49ers game, lowest rated primetime divisional round game so far. So, yeah, that one was the one stinker, and even still that had 28 million people watching it. So there you go, a few things off the radar.
Thank you, Craig. Coming up, Pat Nunley was the broadcast voice last night, a part of the color analyst of radio in Baylor's win against Kansas. His thought on what he's seen, the 5-game winning streak. Alabama, no, I keep saying that. Alabama hammered Baylor last year. Arkansas next home, then it's Texas, the Big 12 tonight, the Big 12 in general. Pat Nunley next on 365 Sports. Don Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center, Valley Mills in Waco, where you can walk in the door if you like to smoke cigars and get everything you could possibly want, including all of the great brand names of cigars, including the 2021 #1 cigar, the Padron, 1964 Padron. By the way, they have a 48-foot walk-in humidor loaded up with Macanudo, Ashton, Romeo and Julieta, Arturo Fuente, Rocky Patel, Padron Cohiba, on and on. They're unbelievable. They are loaded with what Cheyenne, Carol, and Ashley bring to the table. They also have what you need, the cutters for the cigars, the lighters, different type of torch lighters, the humidors to put them in. And if you want CBD products that help you fall asleep better and more relaxed and comfortably at night, they have Vita Dreams available. It's a gummy that will allow you to fall asleep, rest easy, and not toss and turn and lose sleep. And you wake up the next day feeling a lot better. It's Don Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center, Valley Mills in Waco.
Start your year off at the Start Something New sales event. Get 2.9% for 72 months on new 2022 Ram 1500 crew cabs on all trim levels. That's right. Hurry. Don't wait. Offer only while supplies last at Allen Samuels in Waco.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, cause weight gain, and wreak havoc on your sexual desire and performance. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results, so if you're tired of being tired, I challenge you to man up and Google search Low T Waco or go online pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $150 a month, includes lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, follow-up visits compared to $395 a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T is board-certified physician consultations, will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone available. Contact Petty Clinic Low T today, just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway. Petty Clinic Low T, helping men become the high-performance men they deserve to be. PettyClinicLowT.com or Google search Low T Waco.
Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Ben Erlinson, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Baylor was 0-3. Now they're 5-3. Beat Kansas. They've lost 3 in a row. The Big 12 tonight with Iowa State, Kansas State, one of the featured matchups in the country. Every game seems to be. Pat Nunley, broadcast analyst for Baylor Radio, joins us on 365 Sports. Pat, great atmosphere, obviously. You've been a part of many of those. Why is Baylor on a 5-game winning streak?
David, I think they're just learning and they're growing. I mean, people don't realize this is the second youngest team in the Big 12. And so they've had to take their lumps, and they've been able to learn from those and grow. And I think the youth of the team is becoming a little more experienced. I think they've got some wisdom around what they're doing. And I think really in a nutshell, it's that. It's interesting when Coach Drew has said, when you're winning, only the coaches see the things that are wrong. And when you're losing, everybody sees them. And so the Marquette loss and then some of the other losses they had got everybody bought into, maybe we're not as good as we think we are, or we have been hyped up to be. And they just continue to grind and get better and try some new things. They play a little zone here and there. And you look up and they've won the games they were supposed to win. And then they got a win against another top 10 team last night. That's a signature win. I mean, Kansas has lost 3 in a row, but they're still Kansas. And they're going to get it turned around. But I think it's just plug away, stay the course, learn, adapt, and grow. And this is a more mature team, and it's showing. I mean, they've now gone to 5-3 in the league, and they've won 5 in a row, which is far and away the longest winning streak in the Big 12.
Pat, they kind of have their rotation down now, and it looks like 8 people. I'm sure that Dale Bonner will get some time down the stretch, obviously as needed, but it looks like they found what they're going to be. And one of the things I noticed last night, and because I think it's been kind of awkward for him on the court more than anybody, but Caleb Lohner really had his best minutes last night. What do you attribute that to?
Just understanding his role, and he totally embraces his role. He's not out there to score. They're not trying to get him shot. He's just got to be a really physical player and get big He-Man kind of rebounds and play defense, and he can do it. I mean, he's built. He's aggressive. Got a nose for the ball. He played, I think, 8 minutes maybe at Oklahoma. He got 6 rebounds in 8 or 9 minutes, and that's what he's out there to do. And he's always got a great attitude about it. He's going to take all the minutes they'll give him, but he just completely embraced his role. And he's another guy that, you go from BYU to Baylor, it's a different league. It's a completely different league. And it's a different system. It's a different offense, different defense, and it's taken a little bit of time to learn that. And like everybody else, he's just starting to get his arms around it.
Pat, I guess in that same vein, probably some of the same answers for this question, but Jalen Bridges, it feels like ever since he went back to Morgantown, it was like a weight was lifted off of his shoulders, or just some freedom was found there, because he's been sensational since. Your thoughts on Bridges and what we've seen as of late from him?
Yeah, the one word I think that describes Bridges is confidence. He's got it now. And I think the inability to make threes was holding him back. It was messing with him a little bit. But I've said all along, threes for Jalen Bridges are nice to have, but they're not a must-have. I mean, if he can make some, that's great. And he's making a few. Made 1 out of 2 last night. Had 3 gigantic threes down the stretch against Oklahoma. But threes can come elsewhere. What he's got to do is what he's doing now. And that's get every loose ball, take charges. Defensively, he was a beast last night. Got a couple of blocks in crucial situations. Got to the offensive glass. Had 9 rebounds and 11 points. That's what, and he needs to make free throws, and he has made them. That's, I think, why they brought Jalen Bridges in, and he's now making some threes, which helps, obviously. But I think the biggest plus for him is now he's confident, he's playing a little freer, a little looser. And, when you're not confident, you're hesitant. And when you're hesitant and you're guessing a little bit, you're not playing at full speed. Now he's playing at full speed.
Did you think this would be who he should be right now? Is this what Baylor thought he would be?
I thought so, yeah. I mean, he probably was expected to be more of a perimeter threat, but that's coming around, and he is now. And the key is you got to guard him. You can't leave him alone. And when you've got to guard him honestly, then things in the Baylor half-court offense work a lot better. And, you can't double team like you would the other three guards. So I think this is where they expected him to be. And now we're seeing the true Jalen Bridges. And I'm telling you, in conference play, he has been sensational. He really has. And it's all those things I just talked about. I mean, you think about it. Against Oklahoma, Baylor got 30 second chance points. Last night, they got more offensive rebounds than they did defensive rebounds. They had, I think, 18 second chance points to Kansas 4, and Jalen Bridges is a huge part of that. That is a significant part of Baylor's success offensively. So he's playing a role, maybe not the role they expected him to play when they got him.
Pat, how surprised are you at Kansas's depth issues? It's coming off a national championship, so you do lose, you kind of maybe lose more people than you would normally because people are going to strike while the iron's hot professionally. But certainly looks like they're missing McCormick quite a bit. And their freshmen that are stud freshmen. I mean, everybody in the country wants the guys that Bill Self recruits, just haven't been there yet. It's kind of weird. I'm sure he's trying to figure it out, but how does that happen to a Bill Self team?
Well, they've got 3 McDonald's All-Americans on their roster as freshmen. Grady Dick is one of them. Then they got 2 other guys. And Dick's the only guy that's really helping them right now. And, I mean, not only is he helping them, he's really good. He might even be projected to possibly be a lottery pick. But they've got guys. Those guys just aren't quite ready yet. So I'm a little surprised at their lack of depth. I mean, they've got the guys, but those guys just haven't been productive. The thing that really stands out at me, and I think, Paul, you mentioned it, is their lack of a big guy. You think about Kansas when they've been really good. They've had an anchor in the low post who could really score. And a lot of their offense was played through the low post, and they just don't have that. I mean, they had McCormick. They had
Doak.
Azubuike. Yeah, Doak. And then go on and on in the years that Kansas has been really good, and that's pretty much most years. So they're missing that guy, and it's showing. And I think because of that, they're scrambling a little bit offensively.
Pat, so they have Alabama. God, I've said Alabama all day. They have Arkansas Saturday. I don't know if you'd want any piece of Alabama. Of course, Baylor plays the elite schedule, as a lot of this SEC Big 12 matchups will be. So you have Arkansas. They're good. And then you have Texas coming up after that. It doesn't get easier. This is part of the Big 12. Your thoughts about, is this team capable, without getting ahead of themselves or getting ahead of themselves for us ahead of themselves, is it capable of ripping off a run here?
It is. I think it absolutely is, because they finally found a groove. Now, they're not going to go undefeated. They're going to lose some games. You just mentioned it. The Big 12 is a gauntlet. In fact, I saw a Ken Palm projection the other day projecting a 4-way tie for first place with a record of 11-7 in the Big 12.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know how accurate that is, but it makes the point that you in the league, you're going to take your lumps. And you're not going to have the kind of record. Baylor, Kansas won the league a year ago, 14-4, both teams. So it's a better league, top to bottom. But I do think this team might even be better playing from behind, right? I mean, they got down 0-3, won now 5 in a row. They're chomping at the bit. They don't care who they play right now. They're just ready to go. In fact, they kind of like the Saturday-Monday thing now that they got through it. And, we're talking to some of the players after the game last night, and they're all saying, we don't want to wait till Saturday. We kind of like to play again Wednesday. That's how you feel when you're on a roll, and that's exactly where they are. So Arkansas will be tough, no question. It's another sellout. I think the home crowd will play as big a role in the outcome of that game as they did last night. So it's just a lot of fun, and it's a really good time, I think, to be a Baylor basketball fan, because the best for this team, I believe, is ahead of them.
Then, Pat, my question to follow up with that, and thanks for your time. I know it's been a busy afternoon for you as well. To do all this, to tweak all this, for guys to understand their roles better, not just because of minutes played. There aren't as many practices. There's some. They're going to get more this week because of the Monday to Saturday. How difficult is that to try to get all this together with a 3-game losing streak and not much time to practice.
Yeah, it's difficult because they're kind of learning on the fly. I think the good news is, and this is not going to diminish the wins they had, but they were able to play at Tech, winless, able to go to West Virginia, who at the time was winless, went to Oklahoma, a team that can beat anybody, and were able to win that game. Oklahoma State, again, kind of middle, lower echelon of the league, and they took care of business, and they learned along the way, and then they needed to get a signature win. They've already got a top 10 win this season. They needed another one, and they got it last night. And now, last night, I think, validated the run that they're on. I mean, it's still, this is not vintage Kansas, but it's still a top 10 team, and they knocked them off, and now they're thinking, okay, I think maybe we're making the move that we need to be making. So I just, again, I like where they are. They're still learning, and I think the practice this week will really help them. They need to practice, and they need to watch film, again, because every game is a bit of a stepping stone in the learning curve, and right now that learning curve has been accelerated.
Pat, thank you as always. Greatness. Appreciate your time, the inside experience. Pat Nunley, Baylor Radio color analyst for Baylor men's basketball, with us on 365 Sports. You know, I was watching the game from where I was, which was behind where the NBA scouts, there was a couple of seats open, so I was able to sit there. And watching it from there, you see the little things that you may not see on television. You may not even see if you're in the arena. And from the angle, because, Paul, you've sat there before, it's right down the court. You're basically almost at eye level with that little riser. And the Caleb Lohner stuff that he wasn't doing. I mean, he was kind of, he was there. But there's just a couple of things that you notice with him. There was a Flo Thamba who I get frustrated sometimes because he doesn't know how to, just grab he tipped the ball a couple of times and kept the ball alive. Bridges did that. The steals by Love and the steal by Flagler, there's just certain angles. The score wasn't even something on my mind for a while. I was just watching what Jalen Wilson does. He's so incredibly good. And it's just kind of a fun angle to watch the game. The little things that I saw that certain players were doing. Yeah. Their little point guard's kind of struggling right now.
Dwan Harris can't score. He just can't. It's in his head, and he's struggling. Until last night, Grady Dick had been struggling a little bit for a few games, which, obviously in the 3-game losing streak, if your second best scorer and overall player isn't playing well and you're kind of all relying on Jalen Wilson, what I've really been surprised about is the veteran transfer they got in Kevin McCullough. He's got a confidence problem right now. He really does. He got blocked twice in the same possession, and the Kevin McCullough that played in Lubbock, I don't think
he was late. He was capable of 25.
Yeah,
he and O'Banner
he's if he gets his confidence back and DeJuan Harris starts playing well,
here they go.
They'll be fine, and I think they will be fine. It's just again, and then maybe this Saturday Saturday thing is good for Kansas, just like it will be for Baylor, because you can kind of flush some of those demons because you have this week of practice.
McCullough did have 14 and 12 last night, but he was 8 for 8 at the free throw line as he was able to take advantage
That's
of
it.
that.
Like that. It's that 6 points from the field. He needs to do more of that.
All right.
How did the future in-laws love that game last night?
I was trying to stay away from that.
Yeah, it was not a great night all the way around. So
Remy and Amanda look so happy.
They were when they're here. Rami,
yeah. They looked so happy when they were here.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was before the game.
Score was 0-0.
I got to tell this story. Garrett, you got Jacob and Jack. So Rami's girlfriend was here, and they were going to get themselves all powdered up and ready to go. Amanda's at the door. She is not wanting to be in the studio, not only because she was nervous. So Rami and them were kind of taking their time.
Oh, yeah.
And she was ready to burst. Let's go. Come on. What are we waiting on? She was already.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's the thing that happened.
Garrett, did you see that? You were closest to being maybe backhanded.
I had my head on a swivel.
Yeah, look,
I'll
tell you, the one person in this room who knows not to mess with Amanda is Jack McKenzie over there.
Why?
So you remember when Baylor lost to North Carolina, Kansas played Creighton right afterwards.
Do I remember? Yes.
And so Jack went down and got all the post-game stuff, got some food, and came up and sat next to us because I had moved by the time Jack got there, it was the second half of the next game, and there were some people in front of Amanda who were just smashed, and she was hurting her enjoyment of the game, and he was really tall and standing up, and it was bad. So I asked the lady, hey, this is my at the time she was my girlfriend, but can she come up and sit with me? I showed her my credentials. She's like, nobody else is here, go ahead. And so she sat there, and Jack comes in and he starts talking to me, and Creighton takes the lead, and Amanda just pivots around to Jack like a wolf on a wounded animal. And it's like, Jack, I'm going to need you to be quiet. And I was like,
during the game?
Yeah. And it's loud, but she could hear Jack.
So Jack had worked his butt off and was just going to decompress and just wanted to maybe
he had like chicken fingers or a sandwich or something. He just wanted to have his food. And no.
Y'all take sports too seriously.
Yeah.
There was a time that I was a raving lunatic and not happy about it. Really.
Everybody asks me why I'm so chill. It's funny. It's like, yeah, if you grew up watching NFL games or Nebraska games, then you'd understand why. You'd understand why.
That's when they were winning.
But by the way,
psycho behavior when you're like Nebraska, #1 team in the country, you're up 45-0, and you get you would think that you lost on a last-second field goal because Furman scored a field goal before time. That's the kind of stuff we're talking about.
It was bad, and I regret it because I loved all that time for 30, 40 years, but I probably could have enjoyed it more.
Yeah, you can immerse yourself in it better. I think if you're like Craig and just chill, So, by the way, we have some breaking baseball news here that I am beside myself about.
Yeah, this is right after I wrapped up Off the Radar. I also would have had it in there, but go ahead.
Scott Rowland is the only person voted by the writers. Now he's going with Fred McGriff, but who deserves to be in. Scott Rowland is going to the Baseball Hall of Fame. And look, Scott Rowland was the best defensive third baseman of his era, hands down. He has a great WAR, it's 62.8 wins above replacement. Great. But his other stats are he's got 2,077 hits, 316 home runs, 1,287 RBIs to go along with a 281 batting average. And this is where I think we've hit a crisis point with the Baseball Hall of Fame and these gatekeepers. I'm not Scott Rowland was a very good player, but if Scott Rowland has to go in, then Omar Vizquel might have to go in. And
he wasn't even close.
Yeah, and
Todd Helton was one.
Todd Helton was almost there.
He was close.
And they were very good players. Billy Wagner, very good player, but it's not the Hall of Very Good. It's the Hall of Fame, and now it's becoming the Hall of Very Good because of gatekeepers keeping out the best players of the era. We can debate the merits of maybe McGuire and Sosa in that.
Bonds?
But, no, I'm putting them even. But you can maybe throw them into debate. But I think McGuire's even a little above Sosa, in my opinion. But if you're going to tell me that Manny Ramirez, Alex Rodriguez, Barry Bonds, and Roger Clemens do not deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, then you are crazy, because what they are without steroids is probably Scott Rowland. And now you've determined that Scott Rowland is a Hall of Famer.
No. Without steroids, A-Rod, Manny, Bonds, McGuire, and those guys were better than Scott Rowland.
That's true. That's very true.
It proved that with Clemens.
Yeah. Barry Bonds was the best left fielder in baseball for a decade. Then his ego got in the way and said, oh, you're all going to do it? Okay, I'm going to do it too. And that's what happened. But these gatekeepers on somehow that there was some sort of competitive advantage or whatever, well, if they're all doing it, then the competitive advantage is smaller, and it was not regulated. So, yes, there's a moral quandary here, but the gatekeepers have got to stop this about these guys, and the gatekeepers aren't even that. Look, I understand that Curt Schilling is controversial. Everyone knows that Curt Schilling is controversial and cantankerous, and you may not agree with them, and he can be a little bit out there. But the rule isn't, hey, this guy's a pain in the ass on Twitter and says some things. It is, was he great? Yes. So if Scott Rowland is in and Bloody Sock is not in, that's nonsense.
Yeah, no. And again, Kurt Schilling was on the wrong side of some people's beliefs, political beliefs, because most of the writers are probably more liberal than they are conservative, and we know that's the case.
But here's the thing. I don't know that because, I mean, wouldn't the more conservative people be the ones who are more pearl clutching about steroids? It's just, I think it's not even his political beliefs where he actually stands. It's that he's cantankerous.
Yeah. And he was great with the media, Craig. Anything else you want to add on that?
I think the Baseball Hall of Fame is becoming more of a joke with each passing year. I know if you look at like certain statistics that Scott Rowland's like top 5 all-time third baseman or top 10 all-time third baseman. That's great, man. But there used to not be a doubt, like outside of the steroid guys, that you had to be super elite to make the Baseball Hall of Fame. And they've taken the bar down in the last few years, no doubt.
They've had to because some of those who could easily be in, but there's the asterisk.
I get it, but
allows a Scott Rowland to get in.
But now just pretty good or really good even really good is not Hall of Fame level. Like there's a difference between you're really good and you're a Hall of Famer. No part of me thinks Scott Rowland's a Hall of Famer. I just don't. And maybe I'm wrong and somebody will, his WAR was and all that kind of stuff. Okay, fine. But I typically, and I'm not a baseball expert, but I typically go off just like the eye test and I think like, oh yeah, that dude's a Hall of Famer. Okay, that guy's got a debate. No. And Scott Rowland, I'm just like, no, I don't really, that doesn't cross my mind that he's a Hall of Famer, but a very good player. Yeah, sure. But here's the thing to me that's wild. He's 47 years old. This was his 6th appearance on the ballot. No one in history has had a higher climb from their original ballot to now. In 2018, his first year on the ballot, he had 10.2% support. The following year, 17.2. 2020, it doubled to 35.3%. Then 2021 went from 35 to 52. Last year went from 52 to 63. This year went from 63 to 76.
So in other words, he got better every year with the same stats?
So since his first year eligible, the voters have gone up 66% from when he was originally on the ballot. And I just don't think that if you're that much of a surefire Hall of Famer, all of a sudden now you're getting 75+% of the vote, whereas originally you got 10%. What changed?
I know. I was saying that. What changed is that there's nobody else that you're going to vote for.
What did Carlos Beltran get?
Oh,
he was 46.5%.
Okay, so Carlos Beltran stats, by the way, 62.8 is Rowland's WAR. Carlos Beltran is 70.1, 435 home runs. He's got 700 more hits, 27-25. A batting average that's essentially the same in 279. 312 stolen bases. Rowland didn't even come close to that. So
was Carlos Beltran in any way hurt by the Astros World Series team?
He's hurt by that and the fact that he's in the Mitchell report.
Okay, among those in the Mitchell report, Sheffield had 55%. I think he has a year left before it's his 10th and final time. Beltran, 46.5. A-Rod, 35.7. Manny Ramirez, 33.2. Pettit wasn't in that. He admitted it. Now, Pettit actually admitted he tested. I think that's about it.
Yeah, I personally think Gary Sheffield's a Hall of Famer.
He got 55%. Yeah. He's only got one more to go, though.
Yeah, I know.
He's only got one ballot left.
He would have to get 20% jump, which we thought about what Rowland did, and none of that was 20% from one year to the next, I believe.
Really, the only guys in line the next couple of years, you got Beltran, who just got his first try, but he's at 46.5%. And then Billy Wagner got 68%. So he's getting closer, and I think has a few more to go. So, Billy Wagner could, in theory, get in. Beltran could get in because it's just his first try. Todd Helton. But, A-Rod eventually could possibly get in unless they hold that against him. He only had 35.7%. Good for Scott Rowland. He was a really good player. Don't get me wrong. The way I always thought of it was like you had to be super elite,
like the ones really, you were in awe of. People you were in awe of.
And he was just a guy who was really good amongst an ocean of other really good players, and at times one of the better ones, but Hall of Famer, I don't see it, but I didn't watch him, religiously, so maybe I'm missing something there. But yeah, that's interesting. If anything else,
yeah, there used to be, if you saw the class, it would make you, the ones who were named, you were like, God, remember him. Things have changed, of course, and the reason and with all due respect to Scott Rowland, I think the reason he gets in is because there's a glut of the elite names because of the asterisks involved in some of the discussion of who should get in. All right, when we come back, and Steve, Bonds was on track to be a Hall of Famer as a regular-sized person. Nobody made him roid up like a buffoon. No, You're right. You're right. It was an arms race. This is 365 Sports. We'll have Paul's Top 5 next. Today, Waco Custom Marketplace was closed, and they put up a note honoring the life and legacy of Russell D. Wilsey, or as many people knew him as Grandpa. That was part of the family of Waco Custom Marketplace. Wanted to make a note of him because they honored him today by closing their location. A company founded by taking care of customers like a family, Bauer family that bought the business back just a few years ago. Waco Custom Marketplace created not only for the family, the Bauer family, but you in East Texas, groceries and more. The butcher shop and bakery are full service. And they also have all the knickknacks you need, from pasta to chips to seasonings to marinades to what you need as well when you're cooking. I mean, like, for example, there's a can of Rotel, or there might be some cheese dip, or there's also some vegetables fresh. And if you barbecue, brisket, or whatever else, they have all of the different, brands of seasoning for you to use and rubs as well. Waco Custom Marketplace at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Kick off the new year at the Start Something New sales event. Get up to $2,500 in total values and 1.9% for 72 months on the new 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited with second and third row seating options. The Start Something New sales event is happening now at Allen Samuels in Waco.
Howdy, Chet Garner here, professional guide, searching for bears in the wild. But not just any bears, oh no, a particular kind. With hundreds of thousands roaming freely in the wild, yet still hard to spot unless you know the signs. There they are, Baylor bears. If you're a bear enthusiast or even a bear yourself, join me and let's find some bears in the wild.
Join the expedition at Baylor.edu/alumni.
Hi, this is Paul Catalina. I recently got engaged to the love of my life, but the most important thing that I had to do before I popped the question was get that perfect ring. And I know nothing about rings. So I went to the wedding ring store, Boozer's Jewelers on Valley Mills Drive. I knew I needed a custom design, and that's exactly what they do. 9 out of 10 of their engagement rings are designed in-house. The entire process took less than a month, and they were great every step of the way. Great options on financing, excellent selection, and talented designers. My fiance and I get nonstop confidence on the ring. I only deserve credit for doing the smartest thing I could, walking into Boozer's and letting them work their magic. Your one-of-a-kind fiance deserves a one-of-a-kind ring, and that's what you get at Boozer's. Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store on Valley Mills Drive.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like our free First mobile app, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. That's the First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automatichefcanteen.com.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year, whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 at 5:45. Or is it 5:55? Either way, it's the Top 5.
Top 5 Alabama OC candidates. Bill O'Brien on his way back to the Patriots to try to calm down poor Mac Jones, who was not happy with Matt Patricia and Joe Judge. So, 5 OC candidates. I will say, somebody mentioned Byron Leftwich. I think that would be a great idea for Alabama and for probably maybe even for Byron Leftwich, but I do think he'll get another NFL job earlier. But number 5, Dan Mullen. If there's a job that's going to get him out of the TV, I think this would be it, because if he really wants to, resuscitate and get back to that, I just don't think it's going to happen. But I do think that if there is the job that will get him to come back and be an OC, then I think it's Alabama and Nick Saban. That would be very telling about where he sees his career path going if he wants to continue to be on TV, which he was really, really good in his first year on TV, or get back into coaching. If you come, work for Nick Saban for a couple of years, you either want to be a head coach again or get back in the grind. But Dan Mullen makes a lot of sense. He's had success in the SEC, and he's a really, really good play caller. I just think with Dan Mullen, he got tired of the grind recruiting, and the guy who's the biggest rival in recruiting in his conference, at least, Kirby Smart, loves recruiting. He lives off it. He shoots it into his veins, and that's why he's not a head coach anymore, and he's doing great on TV. But I do think he'd be a good fit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about fit, but as far as like a guy capable of doing the job, yeah, I mean, I think he could be a pretty good OC for you. But like you said, there's some variables here. For one, does he want to coach?
Yeah.
I mean, does he want to coach, or does he want to make those big, fat TV paychecks without having the heartburn of, recruiting and, having to battle, with all of the big dogs in college football on a, daily, weekly basis? I mean, his gig seems pretty comfortable compared to what he was living previously. So, yeah, I mean, but if he's up for it, I mean, that's definitely a name that I think you at least kick the tires on. But, yeah, I question just his desire to coach again at this point, and also his, apparent I don't know if it's dislike, but apathy towards the recruiting side of things. That's not something you can do at Alabama. I don't care how good your assistants are, but, yeah, you need to be able to recruit there in Tuscaloosa. So that would be a couple of reasons why you'd hit the brakes on this one.
Yeah. Number 4, Greg Roman, the now erstwhile former Baltimore Ravens offensive coordinator. This kind of fits that profile perfectly. A guy who was thought of, he's been at Stanford, he's been a lot of different, I think Michigan as well. So he's been in college, he's been in the NFL. He needs to, revive his career a little bit, and going down and calling play much like his predecessor, Bill O'Brien, would be, or that, the guy who's leaving, Bill O'Brien. Greg Roman kind of fits that, and he's had a lot of success before, but maybe he needs to go down into Alabama and do the Coach Saban rehab program.
Yeah, I mean, maybe so. He's a guy that's super well qualified, that's for sure. So if they were to go this route, then I think that would make a lot of sense. Obviously, Baltimore's got some things that they, need to work on, and, that's a spot that's going to be very intriguing with their own right with Lamar Jackson and company, just kind of how that's worked over the next, foreseeable future. But, yeah, Greg Roman, I think, would be an excellent choice, just given his resume.
Yeah. Number 3, Jeff Lebby. This one, again, Craig, you talked about it earlier. He just got back to his alma mater. He's a huge part of what their plan is there, and what Brent Venables kind of in the new era of Oklahoma football is bringing in Jeff Lebby, who was in the SEC, as they move into the SEC in a couple years. So it would surprise me if he did, but I mean, it is Nick Saban calling you. So It's one of those things that, I think you'd have to consider. But he's a fit, and he runs the offense that Alabama runs now. So Jeff Lebby at Oklahoma certainly would do that.
Yeah, I mean, it would be super interesting, just given that years ago, Saban was not a fan of these styles of offenses, and yet here he is because he's surrounded by it at this point. I mean, and they've dabbled in it themselves, but yeah, this would be super intriguing. I said earlier, I just wonder, because he went to Oklahoma, if there is a little extra pull to stay in Norman for a little while and help see this through for at least another year. But it's at some point like. I mean, when's Lebby getting the head coaching call, you guys think? Is he anywhere close to that?
I don't know. I don't feel like he's as close now as I thought he was a year or two ago.
Because if he were to go to Alabama, let's say, and I don't think that he is, but let's say that he did, where else do you go after that?
Yeah.
Like, you can only be the OC at every great school before you finally have to just sit somewhere or go up a level. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm kind of curious about with him. He's at a top 5 all-time school right now. There's only maybe 4 places, for the sake of debate, that you could just bump up a little bit, and that would be Alabama for one of them, and maybe a couple of others. So yeah, I'm just curious about that part of his career. Kind of the same thing with Kendall. Like, I don't know if Kendall is he toxic? Is he ever going to get a head coaching job? Because of toxic because of the name, obviously. But I wonder about with him, because he's now been at multiple places, but he's still, I guess, got room to go up. Lebby's at OU now, man. Like, it's pretty big. So I think that Saban will probably kick the tires. Though at Ole Miss he was good, but I don't know that he was great. And you're like, man, that's the offense that we have to have here. And how much of that was Kiffin to begin with?
Yeah. And look, I mean, with Oklahoma to Alabama, like, that is maybe one of the 2 moves you can make that, at least at this point, is inarguably not lateral. But everywhere else, like, if you said, like, Lincoln Riley made a lateral move to USC as far as history of the program. Now, there are some ancillary benefits, to being in Southern California compared to Norman, Oklahoma, for sure, which kind of make it a little bit better, at least to the eye of the beholder. But, yeah, I mean, there's only like a couple that you could say, like, that's a definite step up from Oklahoma.
Yeah, Bama, Georgia, and then, it gets into the debate of, are we
Notre
talking
Dame,
about location?
Lateral
location,
move,
location. Okay, USC goes in there then. But then you can throw other schools in there that aren't quite on the level in other areas. But I mean, Lebby's an intriguing name because of the offense. And also he's got some history now in the SEC as well. And I was curious asking that question of where y'all think that his ultimate leap, to potential head coaching comes from. But, that would be a slight step up if he were to do that. But I do think he's going to stay at Oklahoma. We'll see, though.
I know OU is as among the ultimate 800-pound gorilla alpha dog blue bloods. But with all due respect, because of what Alabama's accomplished the last decade, which is better than what Oklahoma's accomplished in the last decade, that is a move up because you're under Saban, because Venables right now is still to be determined as a head coach.
It's a move up if Brent Venables was also the head coach at Alabama, just based on the last 10 years, like you said. Yeah.
Number 2, Joe Brady, right now currently the quarterback's coach with the Bills, but I think his time at the Panthers, kind of put a little dent because that was so short there, and they moved on. But he is now with the Bills, and Josh Allen. So maybe he wants, Saban wants to get some of that 2019 LSU magic on the team and bring in Joe Brady. He's been in the SEC. He's young. He's upcoming. So, depending on what he does, like Alabama and the NFL are kind of, again, that's kind of a lateral, that's the lateral move. Alabama OC to NFL OC is kind of the only lateral move you have there, but it's worked for other guys. Look at Bill O'Brien. And so maybe Joe Brady comes in and becomes the play caller for Nick Saban. I think this would work out really, really well for all parties included.
How about his quarterback at LSU and what Burrow's done since 2019? Now, again, he was there the year with Burrow and got a lot of credit for that, but boy,
that's why he got all of the credit. Yeah. That's what his entire resume is built off of, basically, is the LSU team. And it wasn't just Burrow. It was 2 of arguably the best young receivers in all of football right now, also on that team amongst various other weapons of your choosing that were excellent. I mean, that's one of the all-time great teams, and then you see, what a lot of those guys are still doing in the league right now. So, I think, to try and rekindle some of that LSU magic would be interesting. I've seen his name thrown around a lot, but I'll be honest with you, until I started seeing his name, I completely forgot he existed. Like, since he went to Carolina, I forgot about Joe Brady. And I know that he's moved around and stuff, but, like, you talk about going from one of the hottest names in all of football to just completely off the radar.
Yeah.
That was Joe Brady these last few years. So, that would be that's one of those two, just name-wise, that if you were to announce that, people would get a kick out of that. That would bring you some punch with that name.
Are you going to get Joe Brady 2019 because it's Burrow, or are you going to get Joe Brady because in the last
Jefferson
couple,
and Chase and all those guys? Yeah,
exactly. Well, I mean, in Alabama, you can get those dudes,
can.
but that's for sure. Number 1, Cliff Kingsbury. Look, if he wants to get off the beach in Thailand, this to me would be the match that maybe Saban wants, and then he could get back to the NFL. He could do kind of what he wanted. I do wonder if he wants to be an NFL OC for a little bit and stay in the NFL or go back to college. Cliff Kingsbury is still a very young dude, so it's not like he has to really consider all options right now. But I'll say that you mentioned that Saban doesn't like the offense, like he used to complain about it. I still don't think he likes it. I think he looks at look, I don't like flossing either, but if I don't do it and I go to the dentist,
that's a good grade.
He gets after me. So I'm going to do this because this is the way that I have to move forward. Yeah, he doesn't like it. I don't think he likes it. I think it's, eating his vegetables, going to the dentist, saying his prayers before he goes to bed. But he's in this. And if you want a guy who can run that offense, it is certainly Cliff.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, it all comes down to what Kingsbury really wants to do and whether or not that's the route that he wants to take. I wouldn't be surprised one bit if he wants to just hang around in the NFL or take even a year off and weigh his options at a different date. But I think that's somebody that, as well, like I said, you kick the tires on that, at least if you're Saban, and I think that would be very interesting. And, man, you talk about like packing a wallop as far as recruiting interest and things. I mean, Alabama's going to have that regardless of who the OC is. But, man, all of a sudden you put Kingsbury in that spot, and I think that gives them a new coat of paint that would be, pretty cool for fans of Tuscaloosa. So, yeah, I think you absolutely look into it, but don't know where his heart lies right at the moment.
I tell you what, you mentioned the beaches in Thailand, and I'm thinking, let me go look at them. So I go to Google. Holy my God, the
What'd
views.
You think it was?
I knew, but I mean, this is spectacular. The color of the water, the images, the mountains around.
That's Asia in that area.
Man, he's got a lot of money in his bank. He's with his girlfriend. He may want to just chill out, but that would be a heck of a hire. So let me ask you this about Kingsbury. Did Johnny Manziel make his career?
I mean, he certainly lit the candle. Yeah.
All right, because he was at Tech with Patrick Mahomes, and a lot of people talk about Patrick, one of the greatest college players. He put up a lot of numbers. He was not one of the greatest college players.
Those teams
he was
were entirely
they
forgettable.
Were all 500 or worse. Or maybe the one he finally made a bowl game. I could be wrong on that, but I know Tech fans will lose their mind. But he put up big stats. He was not a great college player. He was a stat guy, and Tech just never moved the needle. He was with A&M, and, of course, there was the Johnny Football that then landed everything else since that. Then all of a sudden he ends up being who was the coordinator? Where was he?
USC for
USC.
2 hours.
2 hours. I mean, Johnny Manziel had launched his career, and I think he knows what he's doing because he was a hell of a player himself at Texas Tech. But has he proven himself enough as a coach?
As a head coach, no. As a coordinator, I think, he'll be fine. I think that's one of the things that the Cardinals thought about Cliff Kingsbury. They thought, look, this guy clearly does not have an eye for defensive talent, but if we bring him to the NFL.
Well, that's Saban's job.
Yeah, but I mean, like that.
Yeah.
But
okay.
Like this guy, so he, as a head coach, he doesn't have that bone in his body in college. But in the NFL, we can get him a good defensive coordinator. We can essentially shut off him having to do anything other than nod his head and go, hey, great game plan, guys, and listen along. And then the players, we can do that for him because that's what we do. We're the front office. We pick the defensive talent. The problem with that is, one, he and Kyler Murray seem to have diverged in the woods as far as their overall goals for being in the same room. And then the Cardinals are famously not a great organization when it comes to drafting a bunch of people. They're good at one-offs, but as far as deep teams that really win, they've only had a couple of those in their history.
All right. Very nice. Kingsbury, Brady, Mullen, Levy, and Roman. Top 5. Again, thank you, Paul, for the top 5. Also, Paxton, I don't think he even was anywhere near any of those. Always great to kind of watch that. Paxton, hook 'em horns tonight. They have Oklahoma State, Iowa State, K-State, a great matchup. Thanks to all of you who watch, participate in the text room and chat room. For Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak, for Garrett Ross, Jack McKenzie, and also Jacob Wilson. Our sponsors, I'm David Smoak. This is 365 Sports. Have a great night.